Hello and welcome to Day 3 of the NCATA National Championships. Welcome inside Matthew Knight Arena here on the gorgeous campus of the University of Oregon in beautiful Eugene. Today we're going to start with the event finals, and let's go ahead and look at the format for the event finals. There's going to be 4 events: the acro, the pyramid, the toss, and the tumbling. And then in each event there's going to be different amount of heats. There's going to be 3 heats in the acro, 3 heats in the pyramid, 3 heats in the toss, and 6 heats in the tumbling. Winners announced at the very end of the heat. Hello and welcome, Matt Side, Knight Uritsky with Janelle Cook here for the event finals. We're going to be with you here for the event finals and later on tonight for the championship meet between number 1 Baylor and number 3 Gannon. And here at Matthew Knight Arena, we're going to get started right away with the acro 5-element heat. And it should be a pretty exciting one. We have 7 universities that have qualified for this acro 5-element heat.
Yeah, this is a really exciting event. It's kind of the culmination of all of these seasons' hard work, and we're seeing the best of the best in each of these heats. So right away we get to see first up the at-large qualifiers. So there's 1 at-large qualifier per heat. Those are teams that did not qualify as a team for the championship but had the highest score during the regular season.
So here's Lander University. They qualified with a score of 9.95. That was back on March 23rd.
And you see the top there got tossed up to the top. She did a pop around at the shoulder level and a layout off. He's going up there to that extended straddle hold, holding those positions for 3 seconds, popping over into the inverted position, down to the ground. Now remember, Knight, that all of the execution deductions apply the same today. So we're looking for those same technical errors as well as making sure that the skills that were stated in advance are the skills that teams are competing. So you can see that the first at-large qualifier to start off the day did a great job. An exciting experience for these at-large teams because, you know, they didn't make it as a team, but they get this opportunity to come represent their university and have a chance to compete against the best of the best.
Again, that's Lander University, the at-large qualifier. That's Bailey Younds to the top for Lander. Let's go ahead and look at the lineup now. So we're going to see Lander, who we just saw. Now we're going to see Gannon coming up next. After Gannon, we'll see Limestone, then Quinnipiac, Azusa Pacific, Oregon, and Baylor. Those last 6 schools qualified after their quarterfinal performances.
Yeah, so the at-large is always going to lead the heat off, and then you'll see the lowest qualifying score next, all the way up to the highest qualifying score from the quarterfinals.
So here is Gannon.
So starting with the toe pitch up to the shoulder level. You can see just a little error on the entry, a step by the base, and a little bit of a balance check for the top. A full twisting layout off down to the ground. We're going to see another toe pitch there all the way to extension. So she took her from the ground all the way to that extended position with a full twist all the way up and a full twist on the dismount. Incorporating that twist to go into that inverted position. You can see the counter there.
So that was Gannon University competing in the acro 5-element heat here in the individual event national finals. And again, in the acro 5-element heat, these teams have 45 seconds to execute 5 skills.
Yes, that's right. There's a timed event. Pyramid is also timed. So we haven't seen any time violations so far this week, and I expect we won't today. But it does give the teams an opportunity, if they have an error, to get back up and complete the sequence. So if they were to fall, for example, and not complete the sequence, there would be additional penalties on top of the execution errors. But if they get back up and are able to complete the sequence, they can minimize those penalties and get the maximum score for the heat.
That was Susie Whiteman, Montana Moeller, Lauren Arroyo, and Gemma Resiner for Gannon. We're waiting now Limestone University to come out. Again, Limestone competed in the quarterfinals. They were the 6th seed in the NCATA championships. They lost to the 3 seed Gannon, who has made it all the way to the NCATA championship meet tonight. And here comes Limestone right now.
So Limestone, as we talked about in their quarterfinal heat, had a really high level of success during the season in their acro heats, especially with their top, number 29, Rita Moser. You can see them going into that extended stand position. The second base coming in to support as she does the pike down. Look at the control that she has. And going into that straddle position. Straddle should be held at 90 degrees. You can see she's doing that easily. And then popping over back into another inverted position, supported at the shoulders by the base. That second base is releasing, and so the judges here are looking for that stability. Really nice heat for Limestone. I'm sure they're going to be really excited about that.
Absolutely, and you can see the student athletes for Limestone that aren't competing in the Acro 5 they were pretty pleased with their team's performance.
Absolutely. One of the fun parts of this event is all of the student athletes that we have on the floor. You know, as you look at the team benches, there's a lot of bodies out here, but all the teams are rooting each other on, and they have their teammates there to help encourage them along the way as they perform in different heats.
I think that's the cool thing about acrobatics and tumbling is, although it is a competition, you see teams cheering each other on, and they're really encouraging each other. And I think a lot of that has to do with the mental aspect of this sport, and really, if you're going to be having errors on your team, you'd like to be cheered on, and I think a lot of teams, they really supply that for each other.
You're right, and there is, there's just a healthy appreciation for the difficulty of the skills. And so, when you see someone do something impressive, shout it out. So yeah, it's a really supportive community, and it's awesome to see, especially here. It's on display most throughout the year in this event finals competition.
So now Quinnipiac's going to come out for the Acro 5.
The All-American Cassidy Osher, number 31, the top here, doing a toe pitch. And in the toe pitch, it releases the top, that shoulder level. So the judges will be looking for the height of that release and making sure that the hand, there's a break from the hand and the foot. Now we have Mia Rose King climbing up here, and we're going to see that incredible planche position. I just don't understand how your body can bend like that, but it's beautiful. And then she has this incredible control to come from the planche through to the pike. And look how high her toes are level with her head. The minimum there is 90 degrees, and she's at a 45-degree angle right there. It's incredible.
It's so remarkable to see Mia Rose King do what she does. And that a lot of the time goes back to the backgrounds of these student athletes. I believe she's an acrobatic gymnast by heart, and you can see the talent right there from Mia Rose King. Let's go back, and here in the replay you can see Cassidy Osher, the All-American, to start for Quinnipiac.
Yeah, here we see Mia Rose King climbing back up there. And just what's really, really impressive is the control and the pace that she maintains throughout this heat. So again, she's got to go and hold that position for 3 minutes. She's got to use her arm and shoulder and abdominal strength to bring her back through there. And just the control of that still is just amazing.
She has one of the highest pikes I've ever seen, especially in this sport. Azusa Pacific now going to come out. We're going to see Jessica Gill working with Hannah Alonzo here for the Cougars.
So we talked a lot about this pair. They've been working together for 3 years. Hannah Alonzo, also an acrobatic gymnast. Jessica Gill from an artistic background. But you can see there, again, one base, one person doing those press skills where we saw 2 bases in the previous heat. So you can see there in that pike position, down to the ground. She's going to do a shoulder climb here. And get up into that extended position. You can see how Hannah Alonso has to press through those shoulders to hold her. Get into that straddle position at 90 degrees. And twist down to the ground. Fun to see those two performing together in some of their final heats as seniors for Azusa Pacific. They've had incredible careers, and it's really awesome to see them out here for a couple of last times.
Go ahead and look at the replay one more time between Hannah Alonzo and Jessica Gill. And again,
one thing to note in those inverted positions is that the leg position is optional, so they can have, you can see Jessica Gill here has her legs split, but you can also have them feet together. You can cross your heels. So you can do if your legs are completely vertical. Then there's other body positions, like we saw with Mia Rose King. We'll see her later in the pyramid doing a split position. We've seen the one arm excitement from Baylor. So a lot of different positions up there at the top in those extended inverted positions.
So that was Azusa Pacific in the 5-element acro heat, and now the home team, the Oregon Ducks, are going to come out to the mat. So the base for Oregon right now is Alexis Weller.
You can see she tossed her up to the shoulder level. She's going to do a half around there. A nice layout for the dismount there. You can see she got the rise. Great, maintained a nice body position all the way to the ground. And then to that press up to an inverted position. And releasing from that first base, and then this is where all of the stability comes in, and the incredible strength from the base to hold that. And they're working together. The tops and the bases are working together throughout the heat to counterbalance each other. So there's going to be a little bit of movement all the time. It's nearly impossible for things to be perfectly still. We get as close as possible on some of these heats with these talented student athletes, but that's going to be a big part of differentiating between all of this high-level competition and event finals.
And Oregon decided to switch their top. They went from McKenna Carrion to Emma Keogh. And there's Keogh with the base of Cammie Wilson. That was the Oregon Ducks in the acro 5-element heat here in the individual national championships. We've seen 6 schools compete already here in the acro 5-element heat. We only have 1 to go, and it's the Baylor Bears. And similar to what we saw from Azusa Pacific, where we only saw 2 student athletes, we're going to see 2 student athletes from the Baylor Bears, and it's Emily Tobin and Riley Chimwalla.
And this is another duo like Hannah Alonso and Jessica Gill from Azusa Pacific, who have been working together for a couple of years. Riley Chimwalla is an acrobatic gymnastics base. Emily Tobin from an artistic background. But they've been working together, and the coaches talk about how they find a rhythm. You can see going into that extended position and the handstand. You can see Riley Chimwalla leaned forward a little bit there. And Emily Tobin coming down to that straddle position, also demonstrating that incredible control on these press skills. Now they're going to go into the toe pitch, so watch for the height on this. Oh, I'm sorry. That they remained in contact, so that wasn't a release.
So that was the Baylor Bears in the 5-element heat. Emily Tobin, both of them NCATA All-Americans as we look at the replay. Chimwalla the base, Tobin the top. Chimwalla last year was named NCATA Freshman of the Year, and then this season, Emily Tobin, NCATA Division I Athlete of the Year. There is Tobin with the straddle position for Bears. So that'll wrap up the acro 5-element heat number 1. So all 7 schools have competed. They've left it on the mat. Now the officials are tallying up the scores, and we're going to take a real quick 30-second break, but when we come back, we'll hopefully be able to announce the score. So Azusa Pacific is going to claim the individual national championship in the acro 5-element heat. Congratulations to Jessica Gill, Hannah Alonso, and Peyton Springer from the Azusa Pacific Cougars.
Yeah, winning the heat with a score of 9.825. Impressive all around, and I know exciting for that duo that we talked about, that senior duo from Azusa Pacific.
So that was the heat. Now we're going to move to the 6-element heat, and we're going to start with Belmont Abbey College.
All the way here from North Carolina.
Belmont Abbey qualified with a score of 9.95 back on March 23rd.
An unfortunate error. Obviously, they've planned for this, and that's not what they want to do. But you can see how they're regrouping, coming back up, and you heard the cheers from the other teams. They're all cheering them on, clapping, encouraging them to hit that skill. And as she's hit this skill, the whole crowd is behind her. See, climbing up to the shoulders in that extended position. Going to go to the straddle hold. 90-degree angle on the straddle. The pop over. Into the inversion. And that release. Looking for that stability. See a little bit of movement there. But a great job for Belmont Abbey to rebound after an error on that entry skill. Obviously, they're going to be really impressive to come and complete the whole sequence after they had the fall.
Absolutely, and the clock did expire, so they are going to be facing a little bit of a deduction for that as well.
So they'll have an additional time violation. That'll be 3/10 in addition to the deductions for the fall. So safe to say I think they're going to be out of contention with the level of competition that we have here, but again, really proud of them for getting back up there and completing their sequence.
Absolutely, and again, Belmont Abbey, an at-large qualifier all the way from just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's really impressive that they're even here to be able to qualify.
Absolutely, and the experience for the student athletes coming out here and being part of this competition, and they've qualified in some other heats today, so we're going to see these athletes back out on the floor and with another opportunity to win a national championship for Belmont Abbey.
So for the Acro 6 element, there's only 6 teams that qualified compared to the 7 teams we saw from the Acro 5 element.
Had a lot of ties, Knight. First time ever in the quarterfinal rounds. We had multiple ties, so something that we'll look at as a sport here as we continue to grow and develop, because there are meant to be 5 total qualifiers for the heat. But exciting to see, again, that high level of competition, and we want to reward those athletes for their efforts.
So here's Gannon University. And there's the top, Susie Whiteman.
So a nice toss up there to the shoulder level. A nice layout off here. And then we're going to see that all the way up to that extended position again. Really nicely done. Second base stepping in. Just doing a full twist down to the ground. So as you can imagine on the twist, they have to know exactly how far they're going to twist to make sure that they're landing and not over-rotating or under-rotating. They also have to land, straight from where they came down. So if they land off to the side one way, that would be a deduction as well. And again, those inverted positions, we see those a lot, but all that is all about the stability and that hold of that 3-second hold and the stability during the hold.
Gannon University in the Acro 6 element heat. Let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time.
The layout here is really nice. You can see that rise that she gets comes together. And then into that extended position. That is one of the skills that just totally impresses me, because the strength that it takes for that base to start them on the ground and propel them all the way up and catch them and then hold them. It's not, they can't move around when they're doing this. So it's really, really impressive.
Maybe a little bit of a preview of what we'll see tonight from the Gannon Knights as they're competing against Baylor in the championship meet. Really, really exciting matchup between Gannon and Baylor. Gannon, the 3 seed, upset number 2, Azusa Pacific, and Jackie Eshelman, the head coach of Gannon, really, really confident in her squad going up against Gannon tonight.
And they should be. They've had a historic season. They've continued to outperform, their opponents, and continue to raise their skills and raise the level of their competition throughout the season. So it's going to be an exciting matchup tonight.
The home team, Oregon, back on the mat. Here's the Ducks.
So you can see that toe pitch. That is the release that we were talking about. So you saw the break between the base and the top. And a full twisting layout there down to the ground. And then shoulder climb up here. Up to that extended position. You saw a little bit of a break or a pause there as she went through her straddle all the way up to that full position. But a beautiful pike down. And again, you can see those toes nice and high. A great heat overall.
So that was the Oregon Ducks. Bailey Lamson, Mariah Tanner, Logan McBain, and Carly Novak. Initially, the Ducks started with Carly Novak being the top, with Bailey Lamson as the base.
In the acro event, you can have up 2 to 4 student athletes that are in the active skills. You can also have a counter, and they can rotate through the different positions throughout the heat to create the sequences. So you can see with Mariah Tanner, there was a little bit of a break as she went up to the top, but really recovered nicely and did a beautiful press down to that pike position, and there's that signature look she has when she knows she's done that pike so well.
The signature smirk from Mariah Tanner, the senior, competing for the last time here at Matthew Knight Arena.
Our next qualifier with a start value of
Now Azusa Pacific, they're going to come out for the Acro 6 element heat.
One thing I really enjoy about the event finals is that during a regular meet, you see, just 2 teams competing in these skills, and the breadth of the skills that we get to see during event finals is a lot of fun.
There's JC Vandezilver for Azusa Pacific, the top. And again, the Cougars, they're going to roll with 2 student athletes, 1 base and 1 top.
JC Vandezilver, the Division II Athlete of the Year, incredibly strong, going into that inverted position and also doing a press down. You can really see the pace, beautiful pace. The officials want to see continuous movement there. So they don't want to see a big change in speed. So she started in that inverted handstand and came down to the pike position. You could see just beautiful control.
Look at the replay again.
The base gets there, tossing her up. And a tuck off. And then you'll see that replay for the extended handstand and the press down. You can see as she goes up, nice pace on the way up. Again, that leg position's optional. And the nice pace down on the pike, toes up high. A really nice heat for JC.
That was Azusa Pacific. JC Vandezilver, the senior for the Cougars. Now Converse University is going to come out and compete. Saw Converse as the 8th seed 2 days ago. They fell to number 1 Baylor, but nonetheless impressive that Converse is here, considering they have 31 student athletes and 21 of them are freshmen.
Yeah, the Converse started their program. They graduated 20 seniors of their initial inaugural class when they started the program. So they have another huge class this year and integrating them into the program with the remaining juniors, seniors, and sophomores that are more experienced.
Wesley Liu is the base for Converse, an NCATA All-American.
And leading with that experience that we talked about. She and the base behind her, Tanjay Lugo, 2 seniors that have really guided this program, putting together a great heat here. Poor Alyssa Liu gets a little bit of a foot to the face during the heat, but takes it very well. And the most impressive part, doesn't break her concentration or create any instability in the skill, which is really impressive. So starting out with that toe pitch to the shoulder level, and a nice layout there by Tanjay Lugo. She's very tall, so you see those nice long lines as she comes through the layout. And then the shoulder climb here. Up to that inverted handstand position, and then she clears her here on the pike down, but then as she goes to the next skill, I'm just so impressed with Alyssa Liu, how she takes the feet, moves her head, but doesn't create instability for the top or, break contact or her concentration.
Yeah, we saw feet to the face for Alyssa Liu a few times in the meet against Baylor, and again right there, an absolute warrior. Here are the Baylor Bears. And first, we're going to see Faith Core with Cam Kitchens.
Oh, a little bit of an error there on the entry. So you saw they did that ground to extension that we've talked about, and Faith Core had to take a step forward, so that'll be a deduction. You can see the half around. You can see the height on that she gets, tossing her up in the air from that shoulder level.
Now we're going to switch, and this is Bailey Humphrey with Jordan Gremler.
So doing that reverse entry there to the shoulder level, the split position. And we're going to see the one arm balancing. And they have to hold that for 3 seconds. So incredibly strong. That is, as we talked about stability and that there's always some counterbalancing and movement, that was about as stable as I've seen these two do this. Let's look at the replay to make sure, Knight, but they've been doing that throughout the competition. And like we said, there's always a little bit of movement. Yeah, we saw this in the part of this. As we move to the one-arm mark, we'll see that stability. It was incredible.
So that was the first half with Faith Core and Cam Kitchens, and then this is just absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, so if you watch their wrist, you can see them moving. That's all controlled movement that they're doing there, but there's very little movement today there. It's really, really impressive.
That was the Baylor Bears competing in the Acro 6 element, and they're tallying up the scores right now. So all 6 universities have competed. They've left it on the floor, and the officials are tallying up the scores right now. Again, this is the Acro 6 element heat. We had the Acro 5 element heat, and Azusa Pacific won the individual national championship in that heat. Now we're awaiting the results for heat number 2. Yeah, this is very unique in the event finals, as they're actually announcing the score after every single heat compared to a regular acrobatics and tumbling meet where they announce the scores at the very end of an event.
Right, well, since each heat is individual and there's a champion awarded for each, it's a fun opportunity to give those athletes a time to shine out there on the mat.
Converse University is going to win the national championship in the 6 element acro heat with a score of 9.775.
Incredible. What an exciting moment for Converse. You could hear the roar from the teammates up in the stands. You can see them running off the floor, greeting their coach with some elation there. And what a fun moment. You know, they drew the tough draw. There's the 8 seed going to go up against Baylor. So being able to take home an event final championship is really exciting for Converse University.
It is really exciting for Keegan Johnson and the Valkyries.
And those seniors we talked about, Tanjay Lugo and Alyssa Liu, have really done a lot to bring that program forward and keep them in this contention of the top teams of around the country. So what an honor for them.
Awesome stuff from Converse University. And now we're going to move to the Acro element, or this Acro 7 element heat, excuse me. Belmont Abbey, Azusa Pacific, Gannon University, Quinnipiac, and Baylor. And we're going to start with Belmont Abbey.
So as we go through the Acro event, and we've heard the names of the heats, 5, 6, 7 elements, you're going to see more elements out there on the map, but they also increase in difficulty.
So here's Belmont Abbey. They qualified as an at-large with a 9.90 start value. There's to be score with a 10.0 start value.
That straddle hold up there, you can see a little bit of instability. Pop over there to that inverted position. Look how it's straight, beautiful lines there. This is the first base releases. We look for that hold. And a 180 degrees of twist down.
So that was Belmont. On the bright side, it's really great that they were able to execute and not have a fall this time.
Yes. And the top there, number 13, Molly Hanley. She's a senior. She's one of the founding members of the program. So great to see her out there. And she's looking to go into coaching in acrobatics and tumbling next year.
It's really exciting. You'll see that a lot from these student athletes. They'll eventually go into coaching. And in fact, Fee Mulkey, who's the coach at Baylor, a third of the coaches in the NCATA are former student athletes under her.
It's quite a tree, isn't it? As we talk about coaching trees in other sports, the one that Fee Mulkey has created is exciting. And you can see the emotion on the faces of the seniors and the group from Belmont Abbey competing together. It's an awesome moment. These are the bonds that, last a lifetime, teammates that you go on and have forever in your life. So really fun to see that.
Now Azusa Pacific's going to come out. Going to see Jessica Gill and Hannah Alonzo again.
Oh. So on the entry there, you saw some errors. But they're going to rebound here to, again, maximize. You never know what can happen in a heat. So you can see Jessica Gill go into that extended position. She's going to press down. Great recovery from the first skill to the second. See that climb up to the shoulder level in that extended position. See her go to that familiar straddle. And pop over. And in the pop over, you want to see that continuous pace as well. You don't want to see kind of a little bit of a start and then all of a sudden really fast movement. So they do a great job of controlling that transition. So overall, probably not what they had hoped for. So we look at the replay, we can see a little bit what happened there on that first skill sequence. But it looks like they just a little bit of a balance check. So we saw, the arm swing from Jessica Gill, and Hannah Alonso had to take a couple of steps. So those are going to be some deductions for Azusa Pacific in this heat.
Azusa Pacific had won the individual national championship in the Acro 5 element. They were hoping to do so in the 7 element. Just a little bit of a shaky start there. But there's still 3 teams left to compete, and here actually in the 7 element Acro heat, we actually have 5 universities, which is the number that we were actually looking for.
Right, we got one. Well, yeah, like we said before, it's just really a testament to the level of competition that all of these teams have brought to the tournament, and the quarterfinals, they all brought their A games. So, hey, it's great to see the parity that we're seeing as the sport continues to grow and the level of competition between the teams just go up and up. So it's really fun. And again, it's nice to see all these different skills in one spot. It's really a display of the athleticism, the strength, the mobility, and the flair that we see in acrobatics and tumbling.
Here's Gannon University, and we're going to see Allie Price for the first time now.
Really nice height on that toe pitch. You could see the release from the base. She does the full twisting layout down to the ground. Going to go into that extended position again. All the way up to the handstand. You can see the second base come in for support as she pikes down. And again, a nice pike hold. You can see those toes are well up above 90 degrees. And as they transition, looking for that stability. And that's really a tough move to go from that pike position over to that pop-over position. So Allie Price and her bases do very well in maintaining that control and stability as they execute that final skill in the sequence.
So we saw Allie Price, the sophomore, top for Gannon, NCATA All-American. Excellent job, and then she switches to her base, Abby Hoffman.
Another NCATA All-American and senior for Gannon and a leader for this team. And so I know they'll be competing hard tonight, but you can't help but wonder if they're thinking a little bit about the evening in the matchup tonight, both of the Baylor and the Gannon teams. But this event is a lot of fun, and I know it means a lot to all the different universities to have the opportunity to take home a championship in each heat.
That was Gannon, and now Quinnipiac's going to come out. Acro 7 element heat. So we're going to see the top Mia Sandillo for the Bobcats.
Beautiful. She does a full twist all the way up to that extended position. Second base stepping away into that liberty position. Beautiful hold. We'll switch up to the skill again to that liberty position. Moving over from 2 bases to 1. Extended hold. See a little bit of movement there with the right arm and the full tianta. Those will be some small deductions that the officials will be taking throughout these heats. Oh, and a little bit of a hiccup there on the entry in that last skill. You can see she kind of held that position. So that, again, that's kind of the break and continuity that we've been talking about.
Got it done right as the buzzer expired.
Time's definitely more of a factor in the 7 element because of the number of elements and the sequences and putting these things together. And so when there's changes in the groups or ground touches when they come all the way back down to the ground, that adds time to those elements. Whereas I think in the Baylor heat we're going to see more skills that are completed up in the air with fewer ground touches, so time becomes less of a factor then.
Absolutely, and for Quinnipiac, we saw one top and a few bases. For Baylor, we're going to see Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Grendler, just 2 individuals in the Acro 7 element, which is really, really impressive. They're the only program out of the 5 to just send 2 women out there.
It is a show. I'm excited for everybody to see it. Again, we talked about them earlier in the event. Jordan Grendler, an acrobatic gymnast. Bailey Humphrey, just an incredible base.
And it's only their first season on the team together. Can't wait to see where their careers go.
Oh, absolutely. The sky's the limit. So you can see they're starting in that extended position. Jordan Grendler is going to press up to that handstand. She's going to come back down to the straddle position, hold. And then they're actually going to change levels here. So as she presses back up, she's moving down to the shoulder level, where we're going to get to see a split leg position and that one arm hold again. Just incredible. It gets me every time. And then to finish off, so they have those 7 elements, a bit of an easier move compared to their others, but they'll do that walk into the shoulder level just to meet that requirement of 7 elements for the heat.
The other really impressive thing about that duo is just the dismounts. It's just so effortless.
Yes. Jinx. No, you're right. They do make it look effortless. And again, we talked about pound for pound, these athletes are the strongest on their campuses, and the strength and the balance that it takes and the coordination, it's incredible. And not to mention the mobility. I mean, when you see those pikes and these straddle holds and their hip mobility above 90 degrees, it's really impressive. It's fun to see she does the one arm with, in 2 different ways. And so that's really cool to see those different body positions that Jordan Grendler can do as a top. It would be fun to see if that was a toe pitch there where they did a release and see how high that Bailey Humphrey could toss Jordan Grendler.
I'm sure she could really throw her up there.
I would imagine so.
So that'll wrap up the Acro 7 element heat. Again, we've gotten through the Acro 5 element heat and the Acro 6 element heat. Now the score.
With a score of 9.75, the Baylor Bears.
And Baylor's going to win the national championship in the Acro 7 element heat with a score of 9.750. And you got to think that's got to feel good for that duo.
Well, absolutely. I thought Quinnipiac had a really great heat, and I didn't know, I didn't have a guess as to who was going to win there. But it was obviously Jordan Bailey put together an incredible sequence there, and really fun to see. Again, those are new skills that they brought into the sport, and so it's fun to see their work rewarded here in the event finals championships.
So that'll do it for the Acro portion of the event finals. And we're going to move right into the pyramid event, so no break here. They're really just rolling through it.
Yeah, we try to keep it moving with all of these groups and the number of heats that we have today.
Let's go ahead and look at the rundown for the inversion pyramid heat. We're going to see Hawaii Pacific, Azusa Pacific, Limestone, Quinnipiac, Oregon, and Baylor. Hawaii Pacific is the at-large qualifier, and they had a score of 10.00 back on March 29th to qualify.
Going to be a lot of fun. Hawaii Pacific is a great program. Didn't qualify this year as a team, but have a lot of qualifiers here, and this is our first time seeing them in the pyramid event for the event final championships. As the name of the heat suggests, the inverted position. Might see throughout here is whether or not these inverted positions are taking place at the extended level, like we're seeing Avery Tyson do here, or at the shoulder level, and those contribute to the difficulty of the skills. You can see she has a beautiful inverted handstand, a nice pike down to that position, and 180 degrees of twist to the ground. So an awesome start for Hawaii Pacific. I'm sure they're going to be really excited about that.
So that was the Sharks from Hawaii Pacific. Let's look at the replay again.
We talked a little bit about pyramid and what makes how the values of these skills and what contributes to the difficulty. So we have the entry, which you saw was about 270 degrees of twist up to the top of the structure. You can see 4 bases in the thigh stand at the bottom and 2 mid-level bases. And then you can see the top, Avery Tyson up there in that inverted position. And then she has those modifiers. She goes from the inverted position and presses down. So all of those things contribute to the difficulty. So when you see them doing really difficult stills up top, but a lot of bases underneath, it's because of the work that the top is doing there to contribute to the difficulty overall in the heat.
Now we're going to see Azusa Pacific come back out. And a difference with Azusa Pacific compared to Hawaii Pacific, we saw 11 individuals on the mat. For Hawaii Pacific, we're only seeing 7 right now for the Cougars.
And that's what we're talking about, some of those differences here. So their difficulty will come more from the structure. And so you might see slightly less difficult entries or different modifications at the top. But we are no doubt going to see the inverted skill, and they are going to do it at the extended position. So you see just 2 bases. You have a mid base there holding the second mid base, or primary base, excuse me, holding the mid base, Hannah Alonso. And she does that modifier, but she comes straight down. So that's where some of that difference in the difficulty will be.
And again, we saw Jessica Gill with Hannah Alonso. Those two have been doing it together for 3 years.
And this is a variation of the compulsory pyramid that we have seen. The primary bases in that thigh stand, the mid-level base there. And then they do, a different body position at the top. In compulsory pyramid, you're seeing a straddle, and here we're seeing that inverted position.
Alonso, a 3-time NCATA All-American. She's the first 3-time NCATA All-American Azusa Pacific has had. That's really impressive because in 2019 and 2021 and 2022 she won the award. In 2020 she couldn't have won the award.
No opportunity to win it, otherwise she would have been the first 4-time All-American.
Now here's Limestone University. We see Jessica Rubo for the Saints in the middle as the middle base.
So again, as we look at the structure here, we have 4 primary bases in those thigh stands, 2 mid bases. And Marita Moster is going to go 270 degrees of twist up to the top. And also going to go into that inversion. See a little bit of her arms flex a little bit there in order to maintain her balance at the top. So that'll be a small deduction, but she recovers nicely and maintains that continuous pace through the pike. Holds it there and a nice 180 degrees of twist down to the floor. So a little bit of an error there, and in this high-level competition, those little mistakes are going to be costly.
Let's look at the replay again. Limestone University and Musser the top with Rubo the base.
So you can see she gets up there nicely and then just has a little bit of a break there. You see her arms bend a little bit, so those will be small deductions. They'll look also big in pyramid is the stability of the structure. So you can imagine, you're managing a little flare there on the dismount for the mid base. But all of those people stacked up on each other, stability is a big part of the pyramid event.
That was Limestone University. There are 6 teams that qualified for the inverted pyramid heat. We still have 3 more schools to go. We have Quinnipiac, Oregon, and Baylor on deck.
Up next, with a start value of 10.
And here comes Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac Bobcats.
And again, here for the Bobcats, we're going to see Mia Rose King.
Senior Asia Johnson is the mid base here that's going to do a lot of the work to get Mia Rose King up in the air. You can see her go into that thigh stand. .270 degrees of twist up to that position. You see the 2s. Mia Rose King goes into the split. Beautiful hold, very stable. Brings her feet together to come through to the pike. Which again, I don't know how she can be at 45 degrees. It looks beautiful. and 180 degrees of twist down. You can see a little bit on the landing, kind of landed a little bit to the side, so that could be a small deduction. And again, with this high level of competition, they're going to be very, very small margins of victory and small incremental errors that are going to make the difference in this championship heat.
So here's the Bobcats again. Asia Johnson, the mid-base, like we were talking about, NCATA All-American, and then Mia Rose King, the acrobatic gymnast. So impressive.
Another fun one to watch. Only a freshman, and contributing like Jordan Grenler, also a freshman with these new body positions. So really going to be fun to see how these acrobatic gymnasts, freshmen, continue to evolve throughout their careers and continue to innovate.
She does the pike better than anybody that I've seen here at this tournament.
Me as well.
Oregon now coming back onto the mat, greeted with a loud cheer for the home crowd.
So a familiar structure here in this heat. Seeing 4 of those primary bases, 2 mid-level bases. We also have a primary base supporting the second mid-level base in the back. So Mariah Tanner going all the way up to that top position, holding, pressing down for the pike. Look to see her reaction, looks pretty happy. And 180 degrees to the twist to the ground. And she's happy with that heat for sure.
Absolutely, and Mariah Tanner is the student athlete that we have really singled out as being the one that if you look at her reaction, then you know how good Oregon did.
Yeah, and she's a leader on this team, so I think that her teammates are looking for that reaction as well. But Coach Cisnara, indicated her leadership as a senior for this team, and it's fun to see out her competing on the floor.
The signature smirk. And the last team to come out onto the mat is going to be the Baylor Bears.
Couple seniors there dancing onto the floor.
Having fun.
Yeah.
We're going to see Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Grenler again.
So again, we're seeing that thigh stand hold. 2 primary bases, 1 mid-level base this time, and 1 primary base supporting the mid-level base from behind. Jordan Grenler going to go into that extended inverted position. And as we talked about, the leg position in those inverted handstands is optional. So Jordan opts to cross her ankles and then straight down from the top. That's a long way down from that extended position into the catch.
Absolutely, and those bases catching her, that's going to be a lot of impact, and they really trained for that for a while.
Yeah, and that's another place where we're going to see some differentiation between these teams. The top should be landing in a hollow position. If there's a lot of movement when the bases catch, that's a deduction. So we talked a lot about structure and stability, but it's also making sure that we keep our eyes on those catches.
That was the Baylor Bears wrapping up the inverted pyramid heat at the NCATA National Championship event finals.
Here's a look at Jordan Grenler. She looks like she's having a lot of fun.
Already has won an individual national championship in the Acro 7 element. Baylor hoping to claim another national championship here in the inverted pyramid heat. So we're awaiting the results. Then we saw Hawaii Pacific, Azusa Pacific, Limestone University, Quinnipiac, Oregon, and Baylor compete here in the inverted pyramid heat.
I neglected to mention that there is a minimum score for qualifying.
And Baylor's going to win another national championship. They're going to win the individual national championship. Jordan Grenler, Bailey Humphrey, 2 for 2 so far.
And a 9.90, that's only a 10th of deductions with all of the structure, all of that. I mean, really impressive heat for the Bears. So as we talked a little bit about minimum qualifying scores, so I started to there, 9.5 to qualify in the pyramid heats, a 9.5 in the acro event that we saw earlier. And then those start to change a little bit. So 9.0 minimum qualifier score in the toss event. In the first tumbling heat, the duo pass, as we go and add more bodies into the synchronized pass, the score lowers to an 8.75 and then a 9.5 for the solo passes.
Let's go ahead and look at the lineup for heat number 2, which is the synchronized pyramids.
Pyramid. First, with a start value of 10.00, the Hawaii Pacific Sharks.
We're going to see Hawaii Pacific, Presbyterian, Limestone, Baylor, Quinnipiac, Oregon, and Gannon. 7 universities.
Yes, another 7. So as the heat name suggests, we're into the synchronized pyramid, so very important that every aspect of the heats are synchronized. So it starts even with when those bases go into that back bend. It's fun to see some new basing positions. We saw a lot of thigh stands in the first heat. Now we're seeing that back bend position. Mid base, climbing up to stand on the thighs. 270 degrees of twist up. Bases are fully extended. Positions. 90 degrees on the legs there. And another 270 degrees of twist down. So a really nice heat. I'm going to have to look at the replay there. As I was watching, looked really solid for the Sharks. So you can see those tossers tossing the top all the way up to that extended position. So you can see a little bit of stability as they reach that position and hold in the straddle position. And then the twist down. They were incredibly synchronized. We talked a lot about we're glad to be broadcasting and not officiating.
Absolutely. It's a hard job for these officials.
Doing it in real time, no benefit of replay or slow motion. So they are trained annually by the NCATA. Most of them have a background in artistic gymnastics or acrobatic gymnastics, trampoline and tumbling, and then also cheerleading. So they come from a variety of disciplines and are trained specifically in the sport of acrobatics and tumbling.
So now we're going to see Presbyterian College for the first time today. They qualified with a 9.85 score. That was back on March 10th.
So a couple heats where we had tie scores in the regular season, so 2 at-large qualifiers. So a great opportunity for Presbyterian College to be represented here at the National Championship event. You can see that back bend position again by the primary bases. Mid bases standing on their thighs. Again, 270 degrees of twist up into the straddle hold. So nearly identical to what we just saw. And 270 degrees of twist down. Saw a little bit of instability for the group on the right, but I thought the synchronization was on. And we'll have to look back at the replay again. But we can see a little bit of stability there for the group on the right getting into that extended position. But both have nice lines there on the straddles and good counts here as they twist down and do the landing. So, you know, that's the only thing I saw there was that instability for the group on the right, but a really great showing for Presbyterian College.
Really solid performance for Presbyterian. Again, like you said, Presbyterian and Hawaii Pacific both at-large qualifiers because they both had a 9.85 score. And with that, we have 7 universities competing here in the synchronized pyramid. So those were the 2 at-larges. We're going to see Limestone, Baylor, Quinnipiac, Oregon, and Gannon all competing later on as we move throughout this event. Here's Limestone now.
So Limestone had a lot of success in this heat during the regular season. 2 10s during the regular season. You can see the extended position, so 3 primary bases, excuse me. The mid-level base brings those tops to the shoulder level, then presses them all the way up. and then 180 degrees of twist down to the cradle. So again, we talked about those catches. Those are going to be important. In addition to the synchronization and the stability, those are some of the main things that are being looked at here in the pyramid event. If we watch the replay, you can see good synchronization on the way up. And they switch from being connected at the hands to the feet. That press extension. It's incredible. Baylor strength and conditioning coach yesterday, if he thought the press up or the press back down was more difficult for that mid-level base, and he said he thinks it's on the way down because you can really generate a lot of momentum and strength on the way up, but it's really all about control on the way back down. You don't have that momentum to help you. So I thought that was an interesting perspective.
I think I would probably agree. When I was just thinking about it, when you asked that question a couple of days ago, I was always thinking bringing them down might be a little bit harder, especially with a lot of movement happening from the top like we see from Baylor when they do the press down. That's really, really hard to do, and to maintain control. It's all about the control, like you were saying.
Yes.
So that was Lime's. Speaking of Baylor next as they're on deck and waiting, and here comes the Baylor Bears. For Baylor, we're going to see Bailey Humphrey and Cam Kitchens on the right side with Riley Chimwalla and Emily Tobin on the left side.
So it's not uncommon to see the pairings that you see in the acro, again, in the pyramid event, because they are essentially just building another level of those acro skills. So we're going to see that press extension here that we saw before. A little bear claw there by the tops. Bring them back down. You can see those mid-level bases absorb them on the way back down. And yet again, I'm glad that I'm not an official. It'll be fun to be able to watch the replay and think about it a little bit more, but I thought the synchronization was really nice. The stability as they pressed up to that top position. You can see them do that 270 degrees of twist up, standing on the shoulders. Switching from being connected at the hands to the feet, that's also got to be done smoothly and in synchronization. And then that press all the way to the extension. Incredible. And, you know, we talked about some of the difficulty of the press down and the timing of that. You know, you have to make sure you're keeping the same pace, doing that at the same time. A really nice heat for Baylor.
Absolutely. I love the little bear claw they do there. I like the little flashes that each team does, you know?
I do too. We're seeing that more and more. You know, it's a really technical sport. It's all about the movement, those holds. You know, every movement is so precise. So it's fun when they have an opportunity to mix in some flair that they do that.
Here's Quinnipiac now coming out. Again, this is the synchronized heat in the pyramid event.
So you see a fewer bodies out there on the floor. So we're going to see that back bend position for the primary base. Mid-level there, climbing up to the thighs. Again, with the entry, 270 degrees of twist into that extended position, and they're going to go to that straddle hold. You want to see 90 degrees and 270 down. A little bit of an error on the dismount there for the group on the right. You saw as the top came through the twist, leaned over a little bit to the left, so that's going to be a deduction in the heat. But overall, really strong. And this is a variation we talked about, you know, compulsory, which we don't see here during the event finals, but as the building blocks of the foundational skills. And we saw that extended mid-base and the straddle hold in the compulsory on a thigh stand, which is a little bit more of a stable structure. Here, they're elevating the difficulty of this skill by putting it on a back bend. So as we watch here the replay, we can see just a little bit of different rotation, over-rotation there. So she landed to the side. That'll be a deduction in this heat for Quinnipiac.
That was Stephanie Pereira, and you could tell by her reaction right away she wasn't too pleased with how she landed. Overall, Quinnipiac, it's great that they're here. It's great that they made it to the semifinals, and it's great they qualified for the synchronized pyramid.
Yeah, these athletes know their bodies. They've done these skills a lot of times, so they know when they've
Here's the home team again, the Oregon Ducks in the synchronized pyramid. We're going to see NCATA Freshman of the Year Blesson McMorris be the back base on the right side.
So we see that back bend into the extended position, into the straddle. So again, the same pyramid that we just saw with Quinnipiac. 270 degrees of twist down. A little bit of under rotation here on the top for the right. You can see in the replay, we'll look at it a little bit closer, but overall, a really strong heat. The synchronization was there. You know, we're not seeing a lot of synchronization errors from these teams at this level of competition. We can see the group on the right has a little bit of movement as they come up to that extended position, very minimal. Beautiful straddles. And as top comes down here, we can see this kind of a little bit under rotated. She kind of brings her shoulders around right there at the last second. So that's a potential small deduction.
That was McKenna Carry-On for the Oregon Ducks, the top on the right side. I mean, 6 teams have already competed, leaving just one more to go, and it's going to be the Gannon Golden Knights. And here comes Gannon.
This is a really fun pyramid. I'm excited for everyone to see it again, and we'll see it tonight, I'm sure. But they are going to bring the tops. There's a lot of bodies on the floor here. They have a structure that is familiar that we've seen a little bit here with the thigh stands, and 4 primary bases. They also have a primary base supporting the mid base from the back. But they're going to toss these tops from the ground all the way to extension. It's a really dynamic skill and a lot of fun to watch.
So impressive.
Yeah, the timing, the catch, you know, making sure that they maintain their balance there at the top. It's a really impressive feat for the bases, but also for the tops. They've got to have incredible control, keep their core tight, and really squeeze when they get up to the top to minimize any movement.
That was the Gannon Golden Knights completing the synchronized pyramid heat. And nobody does the duo pyramids like Gannon.
It's a lot of fun, yeah, and it's nice to see that variation, and that's, like we said, part of the fun of the event finals is just the variance in all the different skills. And it's really a display of the athleticism and really showcasing these student athletes. That toss all the way up there. Really nice, and they just do such a great job with the timing, the synchronization, and the stability. And then that toss down. It seems like the catchers are so far away, but the mid bases really propel them into that catch. And they did a nice job. And you see those hollow body positions we've talked about in the catch.
Absolutely, and those bases that are making the catch, they can't move. They have to be there and be firm in their standing, because if they have to adjust on the fly, then that's a deduction because of steps.
That's right. There'll be deductions if they step, but also if you see them lean, or if the top kind of, they sort of, there's they call it movement in the cradle, so if the top's kind of bobbled around in the cradle. So all of those things are potential deductions.
And Gannon's going to win the Duo Pyramid Synchronized Heat Individual National Championship with a score of 9.775. He said nobody does the duo like Gannon, and man, they're winning a national championship with it.
You going to say you called that one, Knight? Let's give it to you. Knight called it.
I don't know if I'd say I call it, but it's still just impressive to see them do that toss-up with the tops. And Gannon very pleased, and maybe a little bit of a preview of what we're going to see from the Knights later on tonight.
It's definitely one of their strongest heats, you know, throughout the season, and so it's going to be crucial to their success in the team competition later on in the evening.
So here are the Pyramid champions so far. In the inversion, Baylor won with a score of 9.900, and then Gannon just won in the synchronized 9.775. That leaves us to the open pyramid heat. And let's go ahead and look at the qualifiers. So we got Coker University, Lander University, Quinnipiac, Azusa Pacific, Limestone, Gannon, and Baylor. Coker and Lander, both at-large qualifiers. Both of them 10.0 in the open pyramid.
During the regular season, yeah, both of these teams earned a 10.0. So we're really excited to see, how they've worked it since that time. There's a lot of time between those performances, and so I'm sure they've been preparing as they learned they were event qualifiers earlier this month. So it'll be exciting to see Coker on the floor for the first time.
Coker University with that 10.0 score. They qualified with it on April 3rd. So at the very beginning of the month, they qualified, and now they're here at the national championships.
So we'll see that thigh stand structure with 4 primary bases, 2 mid-level bases. And they're going to toss this top in the ground. You can see 3 tossers, including the mid-level, or 2 tossers in the mid-level base connected there. Tossing her up, that shoulder position. And then going to that extended position. Very nice. Good control on the way up and on the way down. And then we'll look to the catch here. Really nice position from the top. Nice high catch by the bases. An awesome performance there for Coker. Really exciting, and they're definitely going to be in contention with that performance.
Really impressive start to the open pyramid heat. And let's go ahead and look one more time. That's the top, Hannah Helms, the freshman from Coker.
So able to see on the replay there was a little bit of a wobble at the top at the very beginning, so that'll be a small deduction. Something I didn't see from our angle. So again, something important to think about the judging. It's all happening at the center of the mat. They have that straight on view. So all the deductions are being taken from that angle. So we see things a little bit differently just down at the far end of the table.
Absolutely, and that's why you'll see teams position themselves in different angles. You'll see teams in the center, but angle themselves towards the corner, hoping to hide areas of weaknesses from the officials, but also show the areas of strengths on their teams.
You nailed it. That's part of the strategy. There's several different ways that teams can position themselves, and so it's up to them to determine that based on the skills that they're competing, and as you mentioned, the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors.
Here's Lander University, and we're only going to see 5 women on the mat right now.
So we see that back bend position for the primary base. Mid-level base is bringing the top up. 1 tosser. All the way up to the top here into an extended hold. Nice stability and flow through that first part of the pyramid. A beautiful straddle hold there at the top. And 270 degrees of twist down and a nice landing. A really great heat for Lander.
Lander University qualifying and competing here in the open pyramid. Let's look at the replay.
That's the excitement of event finals and these at-large qualifiers, is that as programs are new and building, bringing athletes to their universities, they have really incredible athletes, as we can see from these at-large qualifiers, but they just might not have that whole team complement to make the team tournament, and so it's really fun to see them be able to come here, showcase their skills, and compete at the highest level with their peers.
It's also really exciting for these smaller universities that get to qualify as they're starting up these programs, because they get to come here and really learn off of the big ones like Baylor, like Oregon, like Gannon, and really get to pick their brains and really improve for the seasons to come.
You're right, and as an NCAA emerging sport, we're competing across all divisions. So we have Division I, Division II, Division III, and so you're right, it's a great opportunity for these Division II schools that are going up against more resourced Division I schools to be involved in this national championship competition and learn and grow and have that experience with their peers.
Here's Quinnipiac now. There's Asia Johnson, the mid-base again.
Starting in the thigh stand, going with the mid-level, switching from the hand connection to the foot connection. And we're going to see that press up to extension. 1 base there, which is the primary base supporting her at the hips, but doing that press extension all on her own, as we've seen some others do. And then falling again. Looks like those catchers are so far away, but they propel the top forward into the catch. She had a nice body position in the catch and good stability throughout that heat.
As we look at the replay again, and you mentioned The catchers look so far away, but at the same time, when you're falling from that height, you're going to fall a long distance.
Exactly. You've got some distance to travel, you know, and the body length of the top as well. So they know what they're doing. They've got that all spaced out and planned accordingly. But, you know, to my untrained eye, it's always seems so far away, but they really propel her forward into a nice catch.
It's good they catch her, too.
Well, of course, yeah, that's the main thing. That's the focus there.
So we're halfway through this open pyramid, or almost halfway. There is 7 schools to compete in the open pyramid.
And that's the fun part of the open pyramid, is that there are no specific requirements. So the teams really get to be creative. The first heat, you know, we had the inverted position that's required. So we saw some of the, you know, similar pyramids to accomplish that. You know, they're trying to compete the very best combinations there to achieve that inverted pyramid. But in the open pyramid, we see a little bit more variety because there aren't any requirements and the teams can really play to their strengths.
Here's Azusa Pacific now, back on the mat.
So 2 primary bases there. Hannah Alonso is the mid base, JC Van de Zilver at the top. You're going to see this extended actually at the shoulder level. So we've seen a lot of extended, but here they are holding that at the shoulder level. Really nice stability and balance. 180 degrees of twist into that catch, which is actually harder for JC to execute because she's not up higher. She doesn't have as much time to complete that twist into the catch. So she does a nice job there of keeping her body position and executing the twist and timing that rotation into the catch. Here's a look at it again here. And it shows the strength there. You know, Hannah's hands aren't even on her shoulders. You know, her hands are out in front, so it just shows you the strength that these two have. Counterbalancing there and keeping that skill in front and stable.
That time we got to see JC Van de Zilver work with Hannah Alonso. Normally we see Alonso working with Jessica Gill, but that time we get to see Van de Zilver
Yeah, it's
working
nice to
with
see
her.
that different pairing and see those two incredible athletes work.
Here comes Limestone now.
And this is another pyramid that Limestone had a lot of success in the regular season. 3 10s throughout the season, including one in their conference championship meet. That toss all the way up to the top, that dynamic quality that we saw with Gannon first, now we see it here with Limestone. And really nice, you see something that we haven't necessarily seen from all of those dismounts. The top, when she comes off the mid base, you really see her rise up in the air and complete her twist and come into the catch. So as we look at the replay, watch, that was really nice execution. So we see the 4 primary bases there, 2 mid-level bases, but we see this top, 1 tosser, and the mid-level's connected. They toss her all the way up to that extension. A little bit of movement as they found that position, held for 3 seconds. And then from here, you see as she pushes her off there, it really brings her up before she comes into that catch.
So that was Limestone, Riley Rossman the top, Brooke McAfee the mid base, and now here comes the Gannon Golden Knights.
So a little, they climbed there onto the primary base, and the mid base there got her foot a little bit mixed up. They resettled, got into position. See the mid base, she has support from 1 primary base behind her at that waist level. And again, that impressive press to extension from the shoulder level. Really nice stability there, good control on the way down. And they're gonna see 180 degrees of twist into that cradle. So interesting here, Knight, from our angle, again, as we talk angles, the way that those catchers were positioned, we could see in the catch a little bit of movement in the toes from where we are in the top. And that's something that the officials might not be able to see because of the positioning there. So again, all part of strategy and all part of how it is. The catchers, as you see though, they don't step in front until all of the structure and the movement for the top is completed. So you can see, a little bit of a bounce there with her feet that we can see from this angle. Probably not something that was in the view of the officials.
And each team will strategize to their strengths and weaknesses. I think that's the cool thing about this sport is that the officials are all in one location, and so teams can really play to their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the name of the game. And so as they build these, there are some requirements within the code of points, which governs all the rules for the sport. There are requirements for certain things. So if you have certain angles, you have to be doing things different ways, but some of that is optional. But one thing that's really important in pyramid is what I said. Those catchers have to remain outside of the view until they're ready to get to the catch, and then they move in to complete the catch.
Here's the Baylor Bears now. You see Riley Chimwalla with Emily Tobin.
That back bend, Riley Chimwalla is the mid-base, incredibly strong and stable. Emily Tobin with that nice straddle at the top. And 270 degrees of twist down. This is also a pyramid that had a lot of success during the regular season, earning multiple 10s. So this open pyramid heat is really exciting. I'm not going to make a call this time because I think they all did wonderfully.
Absolutely did wonderful. Let's look at the Bears again.
So again, this is the official's view that we get here with this camera straight on.
Here's the side view.
This is about where we are. This is what we're looking at through most of the event. So we try to give you the best that we can in terms of execution, but we are looking at it from a different angle than the officials.
So that'll wrap up the pyramid event. We're awaiting the scores now for the open pyramid heat. Again, we saw Gannon University win the duo pyramid, and we saw originally in the first pyramid, a national champion.
That's right.
And your open
From Baylor.
pyramid champion with a score of 9.95, Limestone University.
And Limestone's going to claim the national championship in the open pyramid with a score of 9.950.
And incredibly exciting for the Saints. They, again, coming in as the 6th seed, matched up against Gannon, who's advanced to the championship, and something that they had really done well all throughout the season, were able to execute today and earn the event final championship.
And you got to think that's a really, really great feeling for Michaela Soper in her 3rd season as the head coach at Limestone University. They had a undefeated regular season, 11-0. Their only loss of the year was to Gannon in the quarterfinals, and well, Gannon's in the championship now.
You can see Haley Martin there, the administrator from Limestone celebration down here with their student athletes.
And let's go ahead and look at the champions once again. So Baylor winning the inversion pyramid, 9.900. Gannon winning the synchronized, 9.775. And Limestone winning the open pyramid, 9.950. And we're rolling right into the toss event. Here's
Really?
Belmont Abbey College.
Sorry, Knight. Yes, really exciting. Things are going to start moving a little bit faster. They've been going pretty smoothly here, but there's a lot of time involved in the building of the structures and the sequences through acro and pyramid event. Toss and tumbling, very dynamic, fast-paced events. Oh, so she's executing the Arabian tuck there. A little bit of scary catch there, and luckily the bases are prepared for that, and they were able to keep her in the air there, but there'll be large deductions there for the catch.
A really scary moment right there, but a really great job by the bases to recover.
So she's doing that Arabian tuck open and just over-rotated a little bit there, so you can see how she's coming in. She's doing 360 degrees of twist there at the end, and she just kept going there and ended up landing sideways in the, or excuse me, it looks like she under-rotated, right? Correction there, but.
And it looks like that base on the far side couldn't get in there on the catch.
Nice replay there, work by the camera crew, but it was like you said, I'm glad that they were able to make sure that first and foremost she was safe there in the final part of that heat.
So that was Belmont Abbey College. They qualified with a 9.70 score. That was back on March 23rd. We're about to see West Virginia Wesleyan College. And they had a similar score, 9.70, and that was back on March 6th.
So this is the 450-degree salto. So salto is a term for what we would commonly say is a flip, but it has to go 450 degrees. So 360 degrees as if you went, from one place to the next. So it has to travel even further.
West Virginia Wesleyan actually has a start value of 9.90 here in the toss.
So here we're seeing the double. So that's a laid out position, 2 full twists in the air. And a really nice heat for the Bobcats. Again, over the regular season, competed this heat at a really high level. Able to qualify here for the national championship and come out and represent West Virginia Wesleyan College. And a really nice job here. A little bit of movement in that catch that you saw. Did a great job keeping her legs together, but landed a little bit back with the catching group. So you'll see some deductions taken there for that. You can see just how when she traveled in the air, she landed back towards the back of that basing group. So there'll be some deductions there, but wonderful to have them here competing all the way out from West Virginia, representing the Mountain East Conference.
Saw Fairmont State earlier in the tournament. They're also from the Mountain East Conference, also from the state of West Virginia.
That's right. Mountain East Conference was the first conference to sponsor acrobatics and tumbling as a conference championship sport. And Fairmont State, one of the founding members there, Christy Kiefer, the original founding head coach, now retired from coaching and an administrator at Fairmont State. Did a lot of groundwork with Reed Amos at the Mountain East Conference to create the conference and really create a model that then Conference Carolinas adopted, which we're seeing here, Limestone Saints from that conference.
So like you mentioned, here is Limestone. Riley Rossman, the top.
So we're going to see that laid out position again, 2 twists of the double. And you can see again a little bit of movement in that catch. So as we look back to the replay, as she travels up in the air, a little bit of a lack of height there on the skill, which contributes to the rotation and ultimately the timing into that catch. So she did a great job maintaining that body position, but ultimately going to see some deductions for the height of that skill as well as the finish into the catch.
Again, we have 7 universities represented here in the 450 Salto heat. Belmont Abbey, West Virginia Wesleyan, Limestone, Gannon University, Oregon, Quinnipiac, and Azusa Pacific. Now we're going to see Gannon University. They're going to come out, and they're the first ones to have a 10.0 start value here in the 450 Salto.
So a little bit of an advantage here, because they're going to add a kick to that double layout that we saw. And so that elevates it from what we saw. The double is a 9.9 up to a 10.0. So look for the split as she, between her legs, as she enters that, brings her feet back together and completes the 2 twists. So as we saw in the first couple of heats there, catches are a big part of toss. So not only is it about the skill that the top's executing in the air, those aerial skills, it's about how she comes into the catch and how the bases catch her. As we look back at this, you can see the split needs to be at least 45 degrees. She brings her feet back together and lands just back in that basing group. So there'll be some deductions for them.
That was Gannon University. Oregon awaiting on deck. And we'll have Quinnipiac and Azusa Pacific. Again, Limestone, Gannon, Oregon, Quinnipiac, and Azusa Pacific all qualifying for the 450 Salto heat based on their results in the quarterfinals. That happened 2 days ago.
Next, for the start value.
And now here are the hometown Ducks.
So we're going to see that double laid out again, so a 9.90 start value. But with the execution errors that we've seen so far, it's anyone's game.
For the Ducks, we're going to see Jade Albalos being the top.
Oh. And unfortunately, a continuation of the errors that we've seen there with the catches. And so kind of a tough start to the toss event overall, but hopefully everyone's okay. Can be a little bit tough on the bases sometimes because of the aerial nature of this, that you can get a little bit banged around as the top comes back in there and ensuring her safety. But looks like she just landed again back. A little bit of a lack of height overall in the skill, and then just was trying to extend back through in here and trying to pull her legs through and just traveled back into the back of the basing group. So
seen a lot of errors so far here in the event finals. It's very interesting. When you're looking at the championship meets that we've had in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, you haven't really seen a lot of errors, but here in the event finals, there's just so many teams, and so there's so many teams competing, there's so many more chances for errors to happen.
Well, certainly in the toss event, like we mentioned, it's one of the higher difficulty events. It's there's just really one shot to go out there. All the timing has to be just right. That top has to extend. The timing between the top and the basing group is really important, and that top needs to extend in order to execute her skill at the very height of the toss. And so when some of those things are off, it affects everything that comes after. Now, we saw that Arabian tuck open from Cassidy Osher, something she's been executing at a high level all year long. And she did a great job here today. Let me look back at her scores from the regular season. She's been executing that really well, averaging over a 9.5 throughout the season, and so really beautiful. You start with 180 degrees of twist, do a flip, and then 360 more degrees of twist back into the catch. So you can see what's really important with the basing group set her up well. They got her a lot of height to go execute all of those skills. And she extends her body back through just in time to get that catch in a good position overall. But I think from my eye, the best heat of the event so far.
So that was Cassidy Osher, the graduate student at Quinnipiac, and now we're going to see the Azusa Pacific Cougars to wrap up the 450 salto toss of heat.
So also starting with the 10.0, we're going to see that kick back double from JC Van de Zilver. Had a high level of success throughout the season. Really beautiful skills in the air. You can see again the benefit of the height that the basing group can give the toss to do those skills up in the air. And we saw, definitely the highest level of height from Quinnipiac and Azusa in this heat. And again, we're going to have to be looking to the catches to see how that finishes up. You can see her toes up above her head. So that's going to be a minor deduction in the catch. You can see how her shoulders were a little bit low in the group, but overall, a really nice heat for JC Van de Zilver.
Azusa Pacific was pretty pleased with themselves right there, and you can see the reaction.
Yeah.
The cool thing about acrobatics and tumbling is when a team executes really, really well, they're going to show their excitement for that. You, as the audience, get a really good glimpse at the success that they feel they have based on the reactions.
There's no rule that says you can't have fun nights, so that's what this is all about. Obviously, they're going to come out, want to put their best performance on the floor, but it's got to have some fun while you're out there doing it.
So that was the 450 salto heat. They're announcing the score right now. And Azusa Pacific is going to win the individual national championship in the 450 salto toss. Score 9.800 for the Cougars, and we saw their reaction. They were very pleased with it, and now they get to walk away with the national championship. The second national championship Azusa Pacific has claimed in the individual event finals. They won the very first heat we saw, which was the Acro 5-element heat at the very beginning of the event finals, and now they claim the first heat in the toss event. And now we're going to move on to the next heat, which is the duo toss. It's going to be two tosses synchronized, and the schools that are going to be competing are Hawaii Pacific, who's the at-large qualifier, Baylor, Quinnipiac, Oregon, and Gannon.
So again, we talked about when we saw all the difficulty in the toss event and all of the variations and the elements. Everything has to go just right. If you leave that basing platform, don't quite get the height, or there's a error, from the top in terms of her extension out of that platform, the rest of that heat is going to be difficult. So we're going to be looking to see a higher level of execution and adding in the element of synchronization.
So here's Hawaii Pacific.
And we see those laid out doubles, the 2 twists, and completing the layout.
Look at the replay again.
So again, every movement is synchronized, even the load into the platform. You can see that as they left the platform, there was a little bit of a difference in the synchronization and the height of the skills. So those will be small deductions. You can see that group on the left, as we've talked about, catches. That top was caught a little bit backward in there. You can see kind of, again, as we talk about the sequence of events there, she had lower height. And so as she was trying to rotate and extend back into the catch, her body moved back to the back of that basing group. So those will be some small deductions for Hawaii Pacific in the synchronized toss heat.
The Sharks coming out here from Hawaii to compete at the NCATA event finals. Hawaii Pacific was ranked in the top 8 to start the year, but their season, it just didn't go the way that they hoped.
Yeah, it's a long season, a lot of competition, and that's the name of the game. As in all sports, and I think in every postseason tournament, the first team out wants to be in that tournament, and so it's a tough position to be in, but it's awesome to see how many heats they've qualified in the event finals and have them here to earn some championships for their institution.
Here's the Baylor Bears, and the fun part about Baylor is watch the counter, hear what she does with her arms.
A little bit of flair that you were talking about earlier. Yeah. I do like that. Kind of seeing her arms rise as the tops rise, lifting them up, so to speak, potentially. So we're seeing again that back double. See Emily Tobin here on the right. And something that's interesting, a little bit off there in their synchronization and again on their height. And so those are, again, the difficulty of doing these synchronized tosses. You can see a little bit of movement in the catch. So if we look here at this different angle, you might be able to see it a little bit better. So yeah, you can see Emily Tobin really had to pike her body back through to get into that cradle. And so those will be some deductions for that heat. Interesting note on the synchronized heat, when the tops are twisting in the air, they don't necessarily have to twist in the same direction.
So here's Quinnipiac now. They're the 3rd out of 5 teams competing here in the duo toss.
We're going to see that double again. So kind of fun in this heat because we get some of that apples to apples comparison that we see in the compulsory event during regular meet, but that we haven't seen so far throughout. Really nice job. So I think the synchronization was there. We'll always have to look on the replay and toss for me night because it happens so fast. It's definitely, I think, one of the hardest events to judge in that real-time nature of it because of how dynamic and how quick the skills are executed. You can see the rise of the tops there. They are twisting in the same direction in this instance. I thought they were very synchronized, and the catches looked clean. We see another angle here. We can see a little bit of movement here with the group on the right and a little bit of that piked body position instead of that hollow body position. But you can imagine how fast they're coming in there. You can see, again, you want to see extension back into the cradle, and so if they are trying to pull their toes and they have to pike their body a little bit, that'll be a little bit of a deduction, but a really nice heat for Quinnipiac.
In the toss event, you only need a 9.0 to qualify. That is the minimum score to qualify, and really the synchronized tosses is really where a lot of the deductions are done because it's just so hard to time up 2 tosses being done at the same time when you have tops with different sizes and bases with different strengths.
Yeah, and I think moving forward we'll probably have to look at changing the minimum qualifying score because, as you mentioned, in the synchronized heat, that's where we're seeing some of these lower scores because of all of those different elements and the difficulty of synchronizing. We're not seeing scores into this qualification really below a 9.5 in the heats where we're just seeing one tossing group.
So here's Oregon now, the hometown team.
We're going to see that same toss executed. You can see a little bit of variation here in how Oregon angles their tossing groups. Up in the air. I think there was a little, again, I'm going to wait for the replay before I give any feedback because these things happen so fast, but it looked like there may have been a little bit of synchronization. As we look to it, you can see, again, as I mentioned, they're angling. They have options of which way they want to angle for this. So yeah, a little bit of synchronization. You could see how the group on the right came into the cradle a little bit faster than the group on the left. And you can see a little bit of movement in the cradle for the group on the left. So those will be minor deductions taken by the officials.
That was the fourth team, Oregon, to compete in the synchronized toss. We have one team to go, and that's Gannon University.
And this is another instance in which Gannon has a start value advantage over the other teams competing in this heat. They're starting out with a 10.0, and we're going to see that kick added to the double. So the kick double is the hardest toss in the toss event. It's the only toss that's valued at a 10.0. So Gannon taking that risk reward for the higher start value and hopefully going to have the execution to win this heat. Really well done. And again, you can see different angling, right? So they chose to angle sideline to sideline. And you see a really good view there of the twisting skills and of those catches. So as we look to the replay, again, every movement is synchronized, even that load in. The arms going up in the air. See good extension out of that. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. What do you think, Knight?
It looked pretty good to me. I'm not an official, so I can't say, but looks pretty good from the naked eye.
Yes, and that's, we don't have to know all the tiny technical deductions, but you can see clearly that was a really well executed heat for Gannon.
I think that's the great thing, is that since being here for the tournament and watching so much acrobatics and tumbling, when a team really executes well and when they're not executing it as well.
You do. And the only difficulty, I think, for fans comes from those neutral penalties, because those aren't necessarily execution deductions. And so we're not seeing that in the event finals here today, really. It's when a team doesn't execute a special requirement that's part of the heat. It might be if they don't execute a skill that they're intended to execute. And so those are usually larger deductions taken off the top.
And Gannon's going to win the national championship in the synchronized toss event here at the individual event finals. And we both said that looks pretty good. Good enough for a national championship.
9.70 and the win.
So Gannon wins their second national championship so far in the event finals. They won the duo pyramid, and now they win the duo toss.
Yeah, and we're moving right along here tonight. We're already into the final heat of the toss. This is the open heat.
Let's go ahead and look at the winners again from the toss event so far. So Azusa Pacific in the 450 salto, 9.800 for the national championship. And then we just saw Gannon, 9.700 in the synchronized. Now we're going to move to the open toss, and the schools competing are Hawaii Pacific, Azusa Pacific, Oregon, Quinnipiac, Baylor, and Gannon. Here's the at-large qualifier, Hawaii Pacific right now, that qualified with a score of 9.75.
So we're going to see a lot of repetition in this heat because there are a limited number of overall tosses, and these teams are executing these tosses at the highest level. So back double and the kick double, the Arabian 450 salto that we've seen, those are three of the, the top tosses available to these teams to execute. And so we're going to see some repetition here. But again, it's fun because then as a viewer and a fan, you can see, all those kind of tiny differences in execution that you wouldn't see in a regular competition.
That's Hawaii Pacific.
Yeah, so good elevation off the platform. The top does a nice job in her body position, maintaining that laid out body position. Brings her feet through a little bit there at the end, so not the full extension into the cradle. A little bit of movement in the cradle, so those will be small deductions for Hawaii Pacific.
That was Juliana Barbudo from Hawaii Pacific, the sophomore. The Sharks on that toss, they sent out 2 sophomores, 2 freshmen, and 2 seniors, so pretty young group of women out there for the Sharks.
Yeah, another team with a big freshman and sophomore class, a young group, so this is great experience for them as they continue to build and look to get their team into the team championship next year.
Now Azusa Pacific's going to come out. They have a start value of 9.90.
So seeing that back double again. And again, seeing a little bit of movement there. So the toss up in the air, you know, her rotation, how she flows into that catch. She landed in the back of that basing group when she came into the cradle. So we watched the replay. Looks like she didn't quite get the extension off the basing platform on the front end of the toss. And we've talked a little bit about how that goes in the toss event, because if you don't get that great extension off the platform, the timing with the bases on that very first part of the skill, it's going to affect the flow and how the top travels through the rest of the heat. And so unfortunately didn't quite get that extension at the beginning and resulted in the error that we saw as she needed to pike her body a little bit to come into the cradle and landed to the back of that basing group.
That was April Nava, the sophomore for Azusa Pacific. And Azusa Pacific yesterday fell to number 3 Gannon. Gannon moving on to the championship meet tonight against number 1 Baylor. Now Oregon's going to come out for the open toss. You see McKenna Carrion, the sophomore, be the top.
So here, a lower start value here from Oregon, a 9.4. So they're going to do just 1 twist with the layout instead of the 2 and the double that we've been seeing. And so again, kind of the risk-reward thing, because there can be so many errors that happen in the toss event. We see really clean execution by McKenna Carrion there to just do 1 twist, which could lead to a victory because of the errors that we've been seeing so far in toss event today. So again, it's that risk-reward. The student athletes and the coaches get to work together. The coaches get to select the skills that are the best fit for their athletes and where they think they can get the highest level of execution.
Now these scores, are they locked in from the quarterfinals? For instance, Oregon, they have a start value of 9.40. They competed that in the quarterfinals. Now, could they change that start value here in the event finals, or is that start value locked to what they competed in the quarterfinals?
That's a great question, Knight. They have to compete what they competed in the quarterfinals. Same personnel, unless there's an injury. So there's 1 injury substitution allowed. There's additional injuries, then that group has to scratch and the next group comes in. So they are locked into their personnel and the skills that they executed in the quarterfinals, as are the at-large qualifiers. They also have to have the same personnel and the skills that they competed during the regular season.
Here's Quinnipiac now in the open toss.
So we're going to go back to seeing that double. So you want to see that height and extension, body position through the air. And as we've been seeing today, maybe there's a breeze here in Matthew Knight Arena. Just kidding. But we saw a little bit of the catch to the back of that basing group. So we'll have a look at the replay again because it happens all so fast. Looks like she has good extension out of there, and just, you know, momentum sometimes carries you. So she landed just a little bit back. The basing group does a great job adjusting as a group. So you can see that minimizes the error, and that's what all that practice goes into. But because that back base has to lean out a little bit, there'll be some deductions there in the catch for Quinnipiac.
That was the Bobcats in the open toss. They had a start value 9.90. Up next is going to be the Baylor Bears, and they're the only team with a 10.0 start value here in the open toss.
So here we're going to see that kick double that we've seen before. And Emily Tobin, and Division I Athlete of the Year. So look for the split straight off the platform. 2 twists into the catch. Really good height there. You can see as we're sitting here watching, you know, all the way through the toss event, there was a really great height on that toss. So that's a key element there, and allowing the top the most time that she has at the top to execute the skill, stay fully extended, and get back into the cradle. So you can see the kick happens right at the beginning. She brings her feet together, twists, And, a little bit of a lack of extension as she comes back into the cradle, which I don't know how they do it. So, and you can see a little bit of movement there in the catch, but overall a really nice heat for Emily Tobin and the Bears.
So Baylor, they had a 10.0 start value, the only one, and that's because of that little kick at the beginning of the toss. We have one team to go, and it's going to be the Gannon Golden Knights, who we just saw win the duo toss, the synchronized toss, national championship. Gannon going to come onto the floor with a 9.90 start value, and we're going to see the Arabian Salto Tuck for Gannon.
Yeah, Allie Price, the NCATA All-American. She's an incredible athlete, and she does this skill really well. This is a cool skill to watch because, as we've seen the layouts with the twisting, those are continuous skills, and the twisting is very difficult, but it's a continuous skill. Here in the Arabian, these skills are segmented. So she's going to go up, she's going to do 180 degrees of twist, flip, and then do 360 degrees of twist back into the cradle. So all of those movements have to be really specific and executed independently. It can't kind of flow and turn into otherwise. Otherwise, it won't be the skill as it's stated, and that could be an example of a neutral penalty or a red flag. Allie Price does it really well. So as you watch her and as we get to look at the replays when she's done, really look for those separation of those skills. So you can see that was very nice. So she gets up really high in the air. She executes that initial twist. She brings her legs up, does the flip, shoots them back out to get extended again, and twists into the cradle. So watch on the replays here. This is just really nice execution by Allie Price. This is valued at a 9.0. You can see great body position, not a lot of movement there in that catch. You can tell this toss group has worked this really well over the season. It's a 9.9 start value. She averaged a 9.7 through the regular season. And as we've seen with the potential for errors here in toss event, that's really consistent high-level execution throughout the season by Allie Price and her basing group.
Looked really, really good from the Gannon Golden Knights, and that's a really good sign for Gannon as we look towards the championship meet tonight, because Gannon's executing the toss. That's really big for them because Baylor's not a toss team.
Yeah, Coach Mulkey mentioned that in their quarterfinal meet that that's not really their strength this year. They find strength in acro, they find strength in tumbling, and so that's a place where Gannon could gain some ground tonight.
Gannon's going to win the national championship again in the toss event, this time the open toss. They win the last two, the synchronized and the open, and they win the open with a score of 9.775. Allie Price again, so impressive for the Knights. Let's go ahead and look at the results from the toss event one more time. So Azusa Pacific wins the 450 Salto toss, 9.800. Gannon in the synchronized, 9.700, and Gannon in the open, 9.775. So we're going to step aside and take a break, but in about 5 minutes or so, we'll be right back for the tumbling. Welcome back to the NCATA Championships here in Eugene, Oregon. Let's go ahead and look at the schedule so far. In the quarterfinals, it was all chalk. Gannon, Azusa Pacific, Baylor, and Quinnipiac all advancing all the higher seeds. And then yesterday in the semifinals, number 3 Gannon upset number 2 Azusa Pacific. They're moving on to face off against number 1 Baylor tonight. That is going to be at 7 p.m. Pacific time here on ESPN+. Should be a very exciting meet between the two programs. Gannon, their head coach Jackie Eshelman, actually competed under Baylor's head coach Fee Mulkey when she was at Baylor. Now we're going to move on to the tumbling event, and now we're going to start with heat number 1, which is going to be the duo. So the duos schools that have qualified are Hawaii Pacific, Baylor, Gannon, Quinnipiac, and Azusa Pacific. For the tumbling, we're going to have all the heats go in order. So we're going to have the team portion, which are the duo, the trio, and the quad. 2 student athletes, 3 student athletes, and 4 student athletes. And then in the last 3 heats, it's all going to be the solo portion. So we're going to have the aerial, the 6 element, and the open heats in the tumbling. We're going to get started relatively soon, and again, there's going to be a minimum qualification start value, or excuse me, score value that these teams are having to qualify. So in some passes, there's not going to be a lot of teams. In fact, in the quad pass, there's only 2 teams that have qualified.
Yeah, the minimum qualifying score is an 8.75, and we saw that in the quarterfinals. You know, a lot of our teams that were here qualifying in the team event had trouble in the quad pass, and so they weren't reaching that minimum score. So it all comes down to the at-large qualifier, Hawaii Pacific and Quinnipiac, in the quad pass.
Absolutely, and then in the duo and trio, we are going to see 5 institutions, and then for the rest, we should see a lot. In fact, in the open tumbling, there's a lot of qualifiers. We've seen 6 qualifiers, I believe. 7 qualifiers in the open.
In the inverse there, or the converse, whatever it is, we had ties. And so we had a high level of execution in that heat during the quarterfinals, and so we saw some ties and resulting in additional qualifiers for that heat.
We're still awaiting them to come out for the duo tumbling.
We had a little bit of a debate this weeknight about synchronized tumbling versus the soloists, and I'm on team synchronized, and you're team soloist.
I am team soloist. I like watching the solo, but here we go. We're going to start here in the duo. It's going to be Isabel Dela Cruz and Mariah Andis, the sophomore.
So we're going to see them do a round off 1.5 into another round off back handspring whip and a back tuck as the final element of the pass. So you want to see the connection out of that 1.5. And what we really want to see there as you travel through that pass is rise on the final element, the final skill of the pass. And so as we look through there to the replay, obviously synchronization is key here in these heats, right? And when you have those twisting elements in the middle of the pass, it's difficult to keep them synchronized, and it's difficult to keep that continuation of the pass. And so we can see there they did a good job coming through that, but a little bit of trouble on that round off. They got out of sync, and then Isabella De La Cruz up there at the top had a little bit of trouble coming through the back handspring and the whip to execute that final back tuck.
And you can see it on video, but I think one of the better things about acrobatics and tumbling, especially when you go to a meet, is when you're watching the duo tumbling, you can really hear the thumping of the feet as they hit the mat, and so you can really tell when a team is in rhythm or off rhythm.
Yeah, you're right. It is interesting, and especially down here on the floor, you know, you can really hear it. And so when the teams are really together, you hear just a really rhythmic thud, if you will, for lack of a better description. And that kind of allows you to see that when you're starting to hear that get off, it's really telling that the synchronization is off as well.
Baylor awaiting, and it's kind of fun. You saw Hawaii Pacific going from our left to our right. We're going to see Baylor going from the right to the left. Baylor, they're going to have a start value of a 10.0. We just saw a start value of a 9.75 from Hawaii Pacific, so Baylor a little bit higher of a start value. The team portion of the tumbling, that's where you'll see a lot more deductions than the solo portion, mainly because of the synchronization. And as you progress through the heats from the duo to the trio to the quad, it's a lot more deductions because it's hard to sync up 2 to 3 to 4 student athletes.
Yeah, a lot of elements, 2 people doing them on top of the synchronization. So we're going to see Kristen McCain and Emily Tobin do a round off whip Arabian into a round off 1.5. You can see they had some synchronization there. Emily Tobin doesn't look real happy with the pass, so it looks like she got a little hung up coming out of that Arabian. Again, that's a twisting skill in the middle of the pass, and that's really difficult to land and transition. So she just had a little bit of trouble, a little bit of a squat there with her knee, so they got a little bit out of sync, and it contributed to her continuing through and finishing that pass with the back handspring and the 1.5. But incredible strength to regain it. You can see she just came in, she's a little bit under rotated, so landed with her chest back a little bit, so that'll be a small deduction. in addition to the synchronization and some of the continuation that we saw out of the Arabian.
And that's a great example right there of a student athlete that really wasn't pleased with what she had just competed. When you see a student athlete and they're smiling and they're fired up, then you know that's a really good result. For Baylor right there, just didn't really seem like they were really pleased with that.
Yeah, she had a little trouble in the warm-up during the break, and so, that may have been on her mind, but she did a great job to execute that to the best of her ability once she had that small error.
Here's Gannon University, Allie Price and Caitlin Crawford.
See them doing round off 3 whips to a laid out with a full twist, a full. So starting with that round off 3 whips through to the layout. So you can see again, the synchronization is key, and it starts off early in the pass. They do a great job through the first couple whips, but they get a little bit off pace and out of sync, and so they come through that final whip. Also, the final, I think we said this a little bit, but the final element of that skill in that pass, you should see some rise in that. And so there's a little bit of lack of height in that final skill out of that final whip. Really difficult to connect 3 whips and maintain really good technique and body position. So we'll see how that things kind of fell apart there at the end of the pass for both of the athletes, but overall, a nice heat for Gannon.
That was Allie Price and Caitlin Crawford, both of them sophomores, so a couple more years of those two at Gannon, and that's going to be a really exciting duo to watch, already competing here in the national championships as sophomores. Next up, we're going to have Quinnipiac University. They're going to send out Cassidy Osher and Farah Chernov. Osher, a graduate student, Chernov, a sophomore at Quinnipiac. And so far through the quarterfinals and the semifinals, this has looked really, really good for the duo.
Yeah, and this it has. And this is a 10.0 start value, so we see again some varying difficulty in start values through the toss and the tumbling events. So they're able to use that a little bit to their advantage for potential deductions that may occur. So you're going to see a round off whip Arabian. Out of that Arabian, a round off backhand spring 1.5. Really well done. You talked about their execution through the tournament so far throughout the season, and they did it. They nailed it today. The synchronization was there. You saw good height in the Arabian and continuous movement out of the Arabian into the second half of the pass. So you see the rise of the Arabian come through, continuation, and the rise of that final layout. 1.5 there. And you see the controlled step on the landing. Really the pace. Looks like they're just really in control. They're not rushing through those skills. And they did a great job keeping their synchronization and executing, the high level of technique.
So that was Quinnipiac, Cassidy Osher, and Farah Chernov. We're going to see Osher again in the 6-element tumbling. We'll see Chernov in the aerial tumbling. So both of them competing in the duo. They'll both compete individually later on.
Makes sense. A lot of times those soloists are obviously the top, tumblers on the team. And so they're going to build synchronized heats around them as well and find the right pairing. It's all about personnel in those synchronized heats. Who has similar skills, who has similar pace, and they work those all throughout the season to make sure they can achieve the highest level of execution and synchronicity in the heat.
We're awaiting Azusa Pacific right now. They're going to send out JC Vandezilver and Sarah Lang. Lang, a sophomore, Vandezilver, a senior.
So we're going to see a really similar pass. But this one's going to be a round off, 1.5 straight out of the gate. No hand elements or whips. Then right into another round off, a backhand spring whip, and a 360 at the end. Layout full at the end. So again, you talked about the sounds of the synchronization, and we definitely heard those from Quinnipiac heats and here for Azusa Pacific's heat. Really nice level of execution. Going to be an exciting finish here for this one.
It's going to be really, really
close. Look at the replay.
Close,
yeah, you see that 540. They came out of that really well. A little bit, you can see as they travel through that pass, they're already like halfway across the mat there. So they have to do a round off back handspring and that full layout with the full twist at the end. So it looks like, that final skill didn't travel quite as far as it might typically, but executing those final skills out of a whip is a really high level of difficulty. So Azusa Pacific with really good execution through that heat.
Be really interesting to see who's going to get the national title in this tumbling event, the duo. The last two looked really, really good.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to Quinnipiac and Azusa. Angela Urban, the Director of Education for the NCATA, also one of the founding coaches, one of the founding assistant coaches here at the University of Oregon when they started the program. Now works for the organization to help grow the sport.
Still awaiting the results.
Now, sometimes, Knight, we have ties. And in the event of a tie, we're going to see these athletes do it again, but it looks like we have a champion.
9.525. Azusa Pacific.
And Azusa Pacific is going to win the duo tumbling title. They win over Quinnipiac with a score of 9.525. We said it was going to be close, but in the very end, Azusa Pacific came out on top. And there's JC Van de Zilver carrying that trophy away. Azusa Pacific, so far today, that's their third individual event title.
Yeah, taking the lead there with Gannon, both with 3, Baylor with 2, Converse with their win in the Acro event, and Limestone with 1.
Now we're going to move on to the trio tumbling event, and these are the schools that qualified. So Hawaii Pacific, at-large qualifier, Fairmont State, Quinnipiac, Baylor, and Oregon. Here's Hawaii Pacific right now in the trio.
We'll start off with some front tumbling, a front handspring, front tuck, to our round-off back handspring, 1.5. Oh, unfortunate there for Hawaii Pacific. 2 of the athletes falling on that final skill, the 1.5. It's a blind landing. It's a really difficult skill. And as they come out of that round-off, they only have 1 back handspring to generate that strength and power to get that full 540 degrees of twist that's required for the 1.5. And so those athletes just under-rotated and weren't able to do so. So that's where we talk a little bit about that height and the rise on the final skill that allows that twist to occur and the athlete to get fully rotated and get her feet back to the ground. And so out of that back handspring, they just didn't quite have the height, under-rotated, and unfortunately the fall and the landing.
Next up, we're going to have Fairmont State. We're going to see Sophia Del Greco, Catherine Cole, and Alexis Smith. Alexis Smith, the senior for Fairmont State, NCATA All-American.
So we see a lot of different start values in the synchronized heats. We saw some of the higher start values in the duo heats with only 2 athletes competing. As we go on, we see these lower start values. So this is a 9.4 for Fairmont State, a 9.4 in the next round for Quinnipiac here. But we'll see how, again, it comes down to execution. So we're going to see a round-off whip, 2 back handsprings into that 1.5 for the final skill. Really, really nice execution. So again, that's where we talk about coaches and making decisions based on the strengths of the student athletes and the level of the execution. You saw they kept their synchronization throughout that. They kept their pace, and they had high technical execution through the whip into the back handsprings. We're able to get some height, good rotation, and strong landings on the 1.5 as we look back at the replay. And then we talk a little bit about steps. So the athletes are allowed to take a step at the end of the pass. It has to be a controlled step. So you can see pretty good example of controlled steps there. You might see a bit of a lunge forward that would not be a controlled step. But right there, those 3 athletes displayed good control in the final part of that pass and into their step.
And again, that is scored by the official in live time. They do not have the benefit of looking at the replay like us.
Yes.
They're looking at that live and counting those steps afterwards, and it's up to them to decide if it's controlled or if it's not.
Right, and nor the benefit of all the angles that we get to see in the replay. So again, they're looking straight on from the center of the mat. And so the athletes get to choose, the coaches and athletes get to choose where they start from. They can start from the back corner, or they can start and tumble across the middle of the mat. And all of that is strategic, based on the execution of the skills. So they're going to look at those small technical things like legs apart, knees bent, in addition to the synchronization and the landings.
Here's Quinnipiac now in the trio pass.
See the round off whip, back handspring, 2 back handsprings into the 1.5. So the same pass that we just saw from Fairmont State.
We'll look at the replay one more time from Quinnipiac, where we saw Kyla Roberts, Brianna Marks, and Bella Pierce.
So good synchronization there. A little bit of a deep squat on the landing there at the top of the screen, so that's going to be a deduction. Also, didn't really see a lot of rise in that final part of the pass. We've talked about that last skill. There should be some rise out of those back handsprings as they complete the twist. So that's, unfortunately, she under-rotated there, wasn't able to quite get all the way around. So that'll be the deduction for the trio pass for Quinnipiac.
That was Quinnipiac in the trio pass, a start value of 9.40, and so far we've seen a 9.6, 9.4, and 9.4 start value. Up next, we're going to see the Baylor Bears with a 10.0 start value in the trio pass.
Yeah, it gives them a huge advantage in this heat, so they're going to be looking to use that advantage and hopefully win the heat. They're going to start with a front handspring, so we get to see some front tumbling, which is always fun. Front handspring, front tuck. Round off, one back handspring, and a 1.5. So we've seen the 1.5, as this ending skill in every pass in this heat. So it's going to be important that you see that rise and you see the full rotation and a controlled step. But as you go through, watch for the technical execution of the skills that come into the first half of the pass.
Here's Katie Schiffer, Andrea Crittenden, and Tori Harris.
So overall, I'm going to say good execution in terms of the skills and the body positions for the athletes, but we did see the lack of synchronization there. So that's going to be a little bit of a deficit. They do have that higher start value, so it could mean that the lack of synchronization allows them to still take this heat. But you see controlled steps, good flow and continuation out of the middle of the pass into the second half of the pass, but unfortunately just got through that second half of the pass, lost that synchronization. And again, from this angle, we can see a little bit of feet apart and some of those small technical executions as well.
So that was Baylor in the trio pass. There's one team remaining to go, and it's the Oregon Ducks. They have a start value of 9.80, which is the second highest, only two Baylor's 10.0. And so if Oregon can execute really, really well right here, they do have a chance.
You're right.
For the Ducks, they're going to send out Alyssa Hugh, the All-American, Kaylee Barrera, and Sarah Buckner.
We're going to see them do a round off, 2 whips, 2 back handsprings, and that 1.5 as a final skill. So really nice execution on the synchronization portion of that pass. We did see some deviation from Alyssa Hugh at the top. As we look at the replay, you can see how as she travels, she gets a little bit closer to her partner there. So that's going to be a deduction for them. We might be able to see it in a little bit of a different angle. She comes over here in the final pass a little bit closer, and you can see a little bit of a lack of control on her step as she was correcting for that. This will probably do the best angle for us. And she steps a little bit to the side, so there's going to be a little bit of a lack of control, as you can see as she came over on her step. But that's going to be tight. The last 2 heats with those high start values both have, some small technical errors, but overall, good execution. So we'll leave that one to the judges.
Absolutely. And Oregon right there competing in the tumbling looked pretty good. And Taylor Susnara, who is Oregon's head coach, she won several national titles in tumbling.
Yes, she did. She was an incredible athlete. Talk about, I'm not sure the stats on the repeat All-American honors, but we can look that up. But she was an incredible athlete and known for her tumbling, especially in the solo passes, but also as a competitor in these synchronized passes with her teammates.
Taylor Susnara, who was Taylor Galvin then when she competed as an Oregon Duck. She claimed 2 open tumbling national titles, as well as several other titles. She was also an NCATA All-American 3 times, and the Baylor Bears are going to be announced as the national champions in the tumbling trio.
So as we said, that start value really gave them the bump there, and they were able to pull out the win.
Baylor wins with a score of 9.250. That'll do it for the trio tumbling, and After the trio, we move to the quad, and only 2 teams have qualified, like we said. We have Hawaii Pacific, and we have Quinnipiac in the quad.
Yeah, it's quarterfinal day. There were some uncharacteristic mistakes by the teams here qualifying, and so we see Hawaii Pacific as the at-large and Quinnipiac the only team left standing from the quarterfinal day.
So for Hawaii Pacific, they have a start value of 9.40.
We're going to see a round-off whip, 2 backhand springs in the 1.5. Oh, darn it. Really was pulling for them there in that heat with the high chance for finish here, and unfortunately had the fall on that final skill. But synchronization looked really great through the pass. Overall execution, getting them there. They stayed together. It just under-rotated and wasn't able to get all the way down, her feet down to the ground on that 1.5. And unfortunately with the fall. We also had one athlete step off the mat. So that's a 10th deduction. If an athlete lands off the mat, that's a 5/10 deduction. So a big difference. And sometimes, with all this momentum and power, the athletes and the coaches know that there's a good chance that they might step off the mat. And they're willing to risk that for 1/10.
So that was Hawaii Pacific with a start value of 9.40. Quinnipiac is coming up. They're going to have a start value of 9.50. And how about this quad pass for Quinnipiac? 3 sophomores, 1 freshman. You have Summer Knoll, Lindsay Rudolph, and Tiffany Ziba, who's the sophomore, and then Layla Tracy, the freshman for the Bobcats.
Layla Tracy's a lot of fun to watch, number 25. She has the short red hair there, and she's a lot of fun. So watch her throughout this. We're also going to see her later in the solo passes, but we're going to see this quad group execute a round-off Arabian right into another round-off backhand spring 1.5. I think that's going to do it, Knight. That was really well executed. They kept their synchronization through the pass. You saw the rise of that Arabian and the continuation out of it into the second half of the pass. And, we're able to, the key there was sticking those landings, and they did it.
Absolutely. And after Hawaii Pacific had that fall, it's hard to imagine Quinnipiac not winning here.
I agree with you there. I think we can call this one safely, but I should probably knock on some wood because I'll jinx us.
Will be fun to watch. Layla Tracy coming up. She'll be competing in the open tumbling. And they're tallying up the scores right now. Quinnipiac has yet to claim a national title in any event so far, so this could be their first.
It would be great. They're playing for a lot this week. Their head coach, Marianne Powers, is back at home undergoing chemotherapy treatment for breast cancer. Been with them all throughout the week, just propelling them forward, and they want to give their best here, not only for themselves, but for their coach who's meant so much to them and to the sport of acrobatics and tumbling.
Looks like the scores are in. About set to announce it.
Tumbling champion with a score of 8.775, Quinnipiac University.
And Quinnipiac does win the quad tumbling. 8.775 for the Bobcats. That is the quad pass championship for the Bobcats. And you can see the emotion on the sideline right now.
Big smiles all around and excited to take that trophy home back to Quinnipiac University.
So that'll do it for the team portion of the tumbling event. Now we're going to move on to the individual tumbling, which is my favorite portion.
Yes, now we're on team night and the individual soloists. And starting off with soloist from Belmont Abbey, our at-large qualifier.
Jordanova, the senior for Belmont Abbey.
Starting off here with a 10.0, we're going to see a round off 2 whips into the 1.5. Oh, darn. Now, we talked a little bit about earlier about it's really hard to achieve that height out of those whips. You can see she really travels on those whips, and so it's important if you're going to go into that final skill to get your feet back under you to give you that lift that you need to complete the full twist. And she travels so far on those whips. She keeps great body position, really bounds through them, just wasn't able to get that height that she needed to execute the 1.5.
That was Yordanova right there, and that's not the last we'll see of her. We're actually going to see her again in the open tumbling, which is actually unique because in a regular acrobatics and tumbling meet, you can only compete once in the solo portion. This time she gets to compete twice because she had high scores throughout the season.
Right, and then so in as the at-large qualifier, you can't qualify with the same pass, but she executed different passes throughout the season and was able to achieve the highest score in the regular season in both of those heats with different passes. So we're going to see her do some different skills later on, and she'll have another chance to claim a championship.
We're awaiting Gannon University right now. For Gannon, they're going to send out Michaela Lanza, the junior.
So we're going to see some front tumbling to start here. She's going to start with the front tuck, go into a round off, back handspring 1.5. So we want to see her connect into the second half of the pass, which will be a round off right into a full. So really hard to connect all those skills together, and that's something that's really unique about the passes that we see in acrobatics and tumbling. We don't have the benefit of a spring floor that we see in artistic gymnastics, where you can see some really high double aerial skills. And so what is fun about acrobatics and tumbling is the connections that they can put together. And so we saw a little bit of a struggle there in connecting out of that 1.5 right into the next round off. And so you can see a little bit of legs come apart, a little bit of deviation, a little bit of a chest down on the landing for that final full at the end of the pass.
Next up, we're going to have Sarah Buckner from the University of Oregon. Going back to Taylor Susnara, Oregon's head coach, 2-time open tumbling national championship and 2-time 6-element tumbling national champion.
Yes, incredible athlete and known for her tumbling, and something that she's going to continue to bring here to her team as the head coach at the University of Oregon. Tell me a little bit about Sarah Buckner.
Sarah Buckner, she's a senior for the University of Oregon. She's a heck of a scholar, and we'll see her here.
We're going to see a round off 1.5, right into a round off whip with a full at the end. Really well done, and I saw her warm this pass up, and as she went through it, she didn't look fully satisfied with her warm-up run, and I think you saw there the reaction. She was really satisfied with how she competed it in the heat. So you can see that round off right into the 1.5. That's really difficult, and then she connected well out of that and was able to go into that second round off with the whip, and then into the 1.5 there, or excuse me, into the full at the end. So again, we talked about how difficult it is to generate that height and the amplitude in the final pass. You can see again, we get the benefit of the replay, a little bit of the legs come apart as she comes through that final whip. But really well done for Sarah Buckner.
And let's talk about Sarah Buckner a little bit. She's a senior from New Jersey, and we mentioned her being a heck of a scholar athlete, 2-time NCATA academic honor roll. She actually won the Louise Goodrum Academic Award. She just got accepted to medical school at Rowan University. Now here's Farah Chernov from Quinnipiac.
All right, so we saw some of that front tumbling again, really fun. A front handspring. She started out with a front handspring right into a front tuck, right into a round off, back handspring 1.5, another round off, and 360 degrees of twist in the full at the end. So we saw a little bit as she came out of the 1.5, a little bit of a connection and a break in the pass. We want to see all of these passes continue to accelerate and gain speed and use that power to get that final skill. So when we have that twisting in the middle of skills, that can sometimes break the connection. And so we saw that a little bit here for Farah, coming out of that 1.5, but she did a great job recovering and finishing the final skill with the full at the end of the pass.
And the last athlete that we're going to see in the aerial tumbling is going to be JC Vandesilver, the senior from Azusa Pacific. We've talked about her a lot so far. NCATA Division II Athlete of the Year. All the athletes in the aerial pass all had start values of 10.0. And it's all about execution. Here comes Vandesilver.
So we're going to see her do a round off 1.5, right into a round off back handspring, a whip, and a full to finish off the pass. So really nice all around. You know, again, not trained officially as a judge. Get to watch a lot of meets and see this execution. I think that was really well executed by JC. One thing that I do know the officials are looking for is that height in the final skill. And so you can see the height that she has in the first, on the 1.5 on the front half of the pass. Really hard to still generate that height out of the whip at the end of the skill. So that might be a technical deduction for JC here in this heat. But overall, you know, kept her continuity and pace through that very well. You can see a little bit from the single. She comes out of that 1.5 really nicely. A little bit minor deviation here off course, but then again, the thing that I saw the most there was potentially that lack of height in the final skill.
She also had a little bit longer, more emotional hug with her head coach, Kara Willard, as that is the last time we're going to see JC Vandesilver in anything in acrobatics and tumbling.
Hats off to JC. She's been an incredible representative for Azusa Pacific University, incredible representative of the sport, and it's been a pleasure to watch her compete.
So that'll do it for the aerial pass. We're awaiting the results right now. Again, Jordanova, Lanza, Buckner, Chernov, and Vandesilver. All the individuals awaiting to see who is going to claim the aerial national championship. It's been a lovely weekend here at Matthew Knight Arena hosting the NCATA National Championships. And now they're announcing the winner. And JC Vandesilver is going to claim the national championship in the aerial pass. The senior gets it done. She's excited.
That brings APU into the lead. JC's really done a great job leading Azusa Pacific through these event finals. And we've seen her work rewarded here in some of these heats in the event finals, and that brings Azusa Pacific up to 4 event championship trophies.
9.700 score for JC Vandesilver. They won the duo pass. They just won the aerial pass with Vandesilver. They won the Acro 5 at the very beginning of the meet. And now here's the 6-element pass, and these are the individuals that qualified, and we're already going to start with Isabel Dela Cruz for Hawaii Pacific.
So we're going to see a round off 1.5 there, round off back handspring whip, and that 360. So again, the difficulty of coming out of the whip and being able to generate the power and the amplitude necessary to finish that skill is going to be key in these passes that are coming out of a whip into the final skill. So we see that Isabella came well out of that first 1.5, but the whip, she didn't travel very far. You know, the whip, we should see a nice long body position through, and as we watch here a little bit, she kind of pikes through that whip quickly, and then has to also kind of come not fully extended through that final skill. So again, benefit of all these different angles, but you can see that she wasn't really able to get the amplitude or maintain the full body position during the layout at the end, or the full laid out twist at the end of the pass.
It's a 10.0 start value for Dela Cruz. Coming up next is going to be Sofia Del Greco, the junior from Fairmont State, and she's the only individual with a start value that's not 10.0. She has a 9.95 start value for the Falcons.
So, you know, just a 100th there, I guess, or help me with the math there. But yeah, small, very small variation in the start value. And so with all the different technical execution deductions that can take place, it's not a big gap. So we'll see how she can execute. This is something that she upgraded for nationals. She was injured earlier in the year and was doing a pass at a lower start value. So this is something she's going to want to really nail here for her opportunity at the championships. So we saw her do a front tuck, front handspring, another front tuck, which is really unique combination, into a round off back handspring 1.5. So we saw, as we talked a little bit about deviation, you can see as she comes across the corner, that athlete should travel right straight across to the other corner. So if I saw it correctly, because she is traveling away from us, there's a little bit of deviation there in the middle of the pass out of her 1.5, or excuse me, out of the round off. Comes there in the round off. So you can see that she deviates a little bit up towards the sideline of the mat there. But overall, really solid execution, really fun combination of that front tuck, front handspring, front tuck. But as she went into the round off and the second half of the pass, we saw a little bit of deviation contributed to some of the technical errors as she finished out.
Yeah, you can see when she landed, she was leaning a little bit towards the right, and that's a little bit of that deviation that you were talking about.
Yeah, she probably felt herself moving that way, and then as she's coming out, it's kind of seeing where she was on the pass, maybe trying to correct a little bit there.
We're waiting now. Allie Price, the sophomore from Gannon.
Next.
Again, we say her name. She's
Get
everywhere.
to call her name a lot. Yeah, round off whip Arabian here for Allie. Into a round off back handspring 1.5. So look for the height and the continuity out of the Arabian. Really well done. Really great example of that controlled step we talked about. You can see when Allie lands, she's there. There's no need for her to take the step, but she takes the step forward. So as we look back here, she comes through that round off whip into the Arabian. Really nice connection. Maybe potentially a little bit of lack of height on that final skill, but overall, really good execution. You can not pick much out of there for Allie Price on her final pass here in the 6th element.
The head coach, Jackie Eshelman, described Price as a, quote, freak of nature, and it's exactly what she is.
Yeah, it was really interesting as she talked about that. Not only her, athletic ability, but her ability to take feedback and implement it right away. It's not something that she has to go back and rep. Just really mentally strong and able to really just take the feedback and make a correction. It's really impressive.
Next up, we're seeing another student athlete we've seen a lot of, Emily Tobin, the junior from Baylor.
We're going to be seeing the exact same skill in this heat and in the next heat. So a lot of apples to apples comparison that we can do. You can see Emily Tobin having a little bit of a tough time today. And it's tough to see, she's the Division I Athlete of the Year. Really not happy with the pass. You can see it in her body language. She came through the Arabian well, but had a little bit of a connection there, and then was really fighting to get that 1.5, 540 degrees of twist at the end there. And you can see that she had a bit of a deep squat on her landing. Her feet came apart a little bit through the back handspring, so there'll be some technical deductions there for Emily.
This goes back to the mental aspect of the sport, because Emily Tobin, like you said, she was warming up and she didn't really look like she was pleased with what she was performing during the warm-ups, and then she comes out in the duo, she didn't look super pleased with her results, and right now here in the solo, not really another pleased performance for Emily Tobin. And if you look into the future, tonight, big meet against Gannon. Definitely have to be mentally sound going into that meet against Gannon, and that's the mental game at this point.
That's going to be key. I know Emily Tobin wants to come out here and win an event final championship, but I know most important to her and her team is that team championship tonight. So she's going to have to get through the event finals, not the results that she was probably looking for, but readjust and refocus so that she can come and have her best performance tonight with her team.
Here's going to be Cassidy Osher.
So we're going to see that same pass again, the round off whip Arabian into a round off back handspring 1.5. Really nice execution by Cassidy Osher. That's really hard to say some of the differences between she and Allie Price there. As we look back at the replay, we might be able to see a little bit more. You can see she comes through that Arabian. There's a little bit of connection issue there, but she really powers through, gets that into that second half of the pass. Her back handspring generates enough power to get through to that 1.5. A little bit of a lack of height on that final skill. But does a great job keeping her feet together. Not sure on the landing, it looks like that could be a small deduction for her step.
So that was Cassidy Osher, the graduate senior from Quinnipiac, decided to come back for the 5th year after Quinnipiac didn't have 2 seasons because of COVID, and This season has definitely been worth it for Cassidy Osher, another All-American title for her, and she's been really, really impressive. Now Oregon gonna compete, and it's gonna be Carly Novak.
We're gonna see Carly Novak do a round off, 3 whips into a back handspring and a 1.5 for the final skill. So we talked a little bit earlier in the day, the difficulty of connecting those whips. You know, we saw it in some of the other passes, and so that's going to be tough overall for any athlete. You know, Carly does it well. The round off, we can see she starts out with that first whip strong, but as she goes through that last whip there, it gets a little shorter. You know, you want to see those whips and travel the same distance and her body position maintained, and you can see that last whip, she's landing with her feet underneath her. So that's not quite traveling the distance that she wants. Again, from our angle, you can see her legs are apart through those whips. But as she comes through, she has a ton of power, and so she's able to really just muscle through and have that 1.5 at the final and do solid execution for the final skill of the pass.
That was Carly Novak, the junior from New Jersey, playing for the hometown Oregon Ducks, who are hosting the NCATA National Championships. She was the 6th athlete we've seen in the 6-element pass, and we have one more athlete to go, and it's Jessica Gill, the senior from Azusa Pacific.
Another really powerful tumbler like Carly Novak. Jessica Gill has a lot of power, so we'll see how she can connect all those elements and control that power and get that rise that we need to see in those, in the 540 in the middle of the pass, and again in the full at the end. Really well done. Again, you saw a little bit of the deviation. You can see she landed up above the corner here of the mat, so that'll be a small deduction. We can look through the replay. She starts out with some front tumbling, so she has a front tuck into the round off back handspring 1.5. And then she connects it to another round off and 360 here at the end. So again, really hard to put all those combination of elements together. She comes out of that front tuck really nicely. The 540 looks good. A little bit of a lack of height, a little hiccup in the continuity, but those are just really tiny incremental deductions. Able to keep her feet together through that and really muscle through and get some rise there for the full at the end.
So that'll do it for the 6-element pass. Again, this is the solo portion of the tumbling event. We had the 3 opening heats, which were all team portions, the duo, the trio, and the quad, 2, 3, and 4 student athletes. The heat 4, 5, and 6 in the tumbling, they're all solo portions, the aerial, the 6-element, and the open.
Well, this is some of the stuff I love to see. You see Cassidy Osher and Carly Novak there. Different teams holding hands, waiting to see what this score is going to be. Just really shows you and speaks to the community of the sport.
Tumbling champion with a score of 9.75. Azusa Pacific
Jessica Gill is going to be named the 6-element national champion. Azusa Pacific, another national championship tonight, a 9.70 for Jessica Gill. Or 7.50, excuse me. So, Azusa Pacific, they won the open, or excuse me, the aerial tumbling event with JC Vandezilver with 9.700, and now it's our final heat. It is the open tumbling event. We have 7 individuals that have qualified, and we're going to start right here with Yordanova.
So we saw Desi earlier in the aerial heat. She's back here in the open heat with a different pass. She's going to do a round off. She's going to connect 3 whips and have a full at the end. Yes, awesome to see her come back. You can see the emotion there. I'm feeling it for her. Really awesome to see her come back after she had the fall and come back and really execute that well. You can see it all over her face and on her teammate's face. Awesome for Desi. Let's take a look at the replay here. Those whips, you can see that body position and the bounce that she has and maintains in the travel. You can see there at the very end, she really had, because she travels so far in these whips, she had to kind of pull herself through in this final skill. So there'll be some technical deductions on that final skill, but really happy for her to come back and execute the way she did in this heat.
Absolutely. And you could see on her face right away she was so fired up that she didn't fall right there and that she was able to execute the skills.
Yeah, she did a great job. It'll be fun to see how this all shakes out.
Next up, we're going to have Limestone University. We're going to see Kayla Gamaldo, the sophomore for the Saints. And again, in the solo tumbling, these are the best of the best tumblers on these teams. So that's why it's my favorite event, the solo portion, because these are the best of the best.
Yes, they are.
Here's Gamaldo.
We're going to see a round off. She's going to connect 3 whips as well. 2 back handsprings and a 1.5 at the end. Really well done. You know, what's really impressive about Kayla is how tight she keeps her body throughout the pass. Looks like she's going to do a little dance move here to bring it back to the bench. So as we look a little bit here at the replay, we'll see those whips. We've talked about the difficulty of maintaining your body position and connecting them all the way through and traveling. So you can see a little bit on that last whip. She doesn't travel quite as far, and she pikes through a little bit to get through that second half of the pass. But overall, really well done. She gets 2 back handsprings to generate the strength she needs to do the 1.5 at the end. You can see from that angle, it's really fun to see the bounce. You know, you just see that flow and the bounce and the pace that she has throughout the pass.
That was Gamaldo from Limestone University. Limestone was a 6th seed in the NCATA tournament. They lost to the 3-seeded Gannon Golden Knights. Nonetheless, Limestone, a really impressive season on an 11-0 year.
So again, we're going to see the same pass from Alexa Smith that we just saw from Kayla Gamaldo. So a round off, 3 whips, 2 back handsprings, and the 1.5. So look for that connection through the whips into the back handsprings and the power and the rise on the final skill. Really well done overall. And then Alexa Smith, another super senior here who's come back, leading Fairmont State to the title in the Mountain East Conference Championship, and then able to bring them out here to qualify for the team championship and represent Fairmont State here in the event finals.
And you can see head coach Kutry walk away, and she was emotional because Alexis Smith, that was her final tumble.
It's tough, you know, you build relationships over 4 years with these student athletes. They become family, you know, it's a tight community. Not only are you trying to do your best for you and your program and your university, but they're really invested in the growth of acrobatics and tumbling as a sport and its journey through emerging sports status to hopefully become an NCAA championship sport soon. And so that means a lot to these women. They're part of a really strong community. They're led by women. And, you know, those relationships are meaningful. The emotions are high.
Absolutely. It's really awesome. This sport was created by women, for women. And it's awesome that the community continues to give back to the sport. Now we're going to see Alyssa Hugh, the All-American from the home team, Oregon.
But starting off with some front tumbling. A front tuck, round off back handspring, 1.5, round off full here to finish. So as we've talked about, you know, throughout the event, the connection out of the 1.5 is really the tricky part when you're adding twisting elements in the middle of the pass. And so as we'll be able to take a look at the replay and see it a little bit more, she starts with that front tuck, round off, back handspring into the 1.5. Pretty smooth transition overall, but you saw in that final skill, she comes out of here into another round off. She goes right into that full, and so that's also very difficult. She doesn't use a back handspring or a whip to generate any more power for that final skill. So there may be a little bit of a chest down, but overall, wow, she's an incredible tumbler and a great final pass for Alyssa Hugh.
Absolutely, and that's her final tumble of her career at Oregon. A senior from Canada. She's meant so much to this Ducks program. 2-time NCATA All-American and a heck of a career for Alyssa Hugh.
Yeah, an incredible tumbler, an incredible base. You know, she's seen throughout the meet, and the sport of acrobatics and tumbling is going to miss her.
Now we're going to see McKenna Dawson, the freshman from Azusa Pacific.
So yeah, quite a swing from a couple of seniors down to a freshman. A lot of bounce in these whips. Keep an eye on that final skill. Really well done.
Yeah, she's fired up.
You can see the emotion there right in front of us here at the table. McKenna Dawson is pumped, and Coach Kara Willard was pumped as well. And, you know, she had a little bit of a mishap yesterday in the meet in one of her tumbling passes, so I'm sure that was heavy on her mind. She came out here. Those are beautiful whips. You can see we talked about the rise. That's what we're talking about there. Those whips are traveling the same distance. She keeps her feet out and is able to come through, finish up with some rise in that final skill. It's a beautiful pass for McKenna Dawson.
That's so impressive for a freshman to be doing this.
Yeah, she has a lot of power, but she's able to maintain those body positions as well throughout the pass. And you can see there she's really happy.
She's a very emotional acrobatics and tumbling athlete. Here's Layla Tracy now, another freshman from Quinnipiac.
So she starts off with a round-off Arabian. She goes into a round-off, into back handspring 1.5. Again, connecting all these different twisting elements can be very difficult. And then she goes into a round-off with a full at the very end. So as we look back a little bit at the replay, I love, she has the biggest smile. It's so beautiful. She comes out of that Arabian and goes right into the back handspring 540. A little bit of difficulty coming through that. Her Arabian gets good height. She comes through that there, but out of the 540 doesn't quite get her step. And so as she comes in there, she deviates a little bit to the front of the mat, and she's not quite able to pull through that final round off into the full with as much ease as she did in the front half of the pass.
You can hear BU chants starting from the Baylor fans and the other Baylor student athletes as they're cheering on Bree Harris, the graduate student from Baylor. And Bree Harris is really, really impressive in the open tumbling.
Yeah, you want to talk about height and floating. Let's keep our eye on Bree. You know, she tore her Achilles and recovered from that injury to come back, and it's amazing to see what she can do on the mat. Front tuck, round off back handspring 1.5, and then a round off full at the end. And again, talking about the height at the end of the skills, she just floats up there. And it's just, she has so much power. And again, this is not a spring floor. These athletes are generating all this power on their own. So as we look through the replay, she starts with that front tuck, goes right into a round off back handspring 1.5. Gets great height there, connects well out of that for the full at the end. It takes a very controlled step, but a little bit, she brought her foot a little bit back behind her on the step, but was still under control when she did the step. That's a tough one. She and McKenna Dawson both put together really, really nice passes. So we'll see what the judges have to say.
Be interesting to see. We're waiting. Azusa Pacific claimed the solo tumbling championships in the aerial and 6 element. McKenna Dawson hoping to join her teammates in JC Vandezover and Jessica Gill as winning a national championship. Being a national champion. A little bit of a dance
party going there at the back of the mat as these athletes are awaiting the final score.
And your open tumbling champion.
Here we go. The final announcement. Bree Harris is going to claim the national title. A 9.925 for Bree Harris. Really impressive show. And really, that's a huge momentum builder for her as she moves into the championship meet tonight.
Absolutely. That was the type of execution she wanted to have, and she'll be the anchor tonight for her team in the tumbling event again. And so congratulations to Bree Harris.
So that'll do it for us here at the event finals. Let's go ahead and look at the scores for today. Let's start with the acro. So in the acro event, Azusa Pacific won the 5 element, 9.825, and then Converse won the 6 element, 9.775. Big win for the Valkyries, and then Baylor won the 7 element, 9.750. Let's go ahead and look at the pyramid winners. Got Baylor 9.900. The synchronized Gannon, which you'll see again tonight, 9.775. And then in the open, Limestone 9.950. We moved on to the toss event. Azusa Pacific won the 450 salto toss, 9.800. Gannon won the synchronized toss, 9.700. And then Gannon won again in the toss event, the open toss, 9.775. And then we wrapped it up with the tumbling. Azusa Pacific 9.525 in the duo. Baylor 9.250 in the trio. Quinnipiac 8.775 in the quad. And then JC Vandezilver and Jessica Gill won the aerial and 6 element with 9.700 and 9.750 scores. And then we saw Bree Harris at the very end, 9.925 for the Baylor Bears. Really, really impressive. And that leaves us with one more event here at the NCATA National Championships, and that is the championship meet tonight at 7 p.m. Number 3 Gannon versus number 1 Baylor, shaping up to be a really, really exciting meet between these two programs.
Yeah, I can't wait for tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We saw a lot of the skills on display this morning. Both of these teams have been executing at a really high level throughout the tournament, so it's going to be a fun matchup tonight for the nightcap.
So that'll do it for us here at the NCATA National Championship Event Finals. It's been a pleasure throughout the day, but don't go anywhere tonight. We're going to have the championship meet here on ESPN+. Number 3 Gannon, number 1 Baylor at 7 p.m. Be there, be square.